Hello everyone, this is your friend from Naruto Audio Fanfics, and we are back once again with a brand new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto lost his sight when the Nine-Tailed Seal broke and inherited a dark power, Naruto times Anko Mitarashi, Part 1. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit the like button, thumbs up. And subscribe to the channel for more amazing Naruto fanfics like this. So without wasting any more time, let's start today's fanfic. Nothing but rain could be felt as Minato managed to defeat the almighty Kyuubi no Yoko. He was lying on the ground looking at the sky as it was crying because of what he had to sacrifice for the sake of the village. After a while, he looked at the only person that was next to him at the moment. He looked at the little infant for what seemed like forever, since he knew it would be the last time he would get to see him. Minato could only imagine the type of burden he ended up placing on his son. The young Hokage knew about the path of a Jinchuriki, and he very well knew that their lives were far from normal. He remembered the request he made to those he called his family, but Minato was skeptical to believe that the village would treat him as the hero he deserved to be. The fox was responsible for so many deaths and destruction that the civilian population would think it would be wise to simply kill Naruto and end their misery. Even on the verge of dying, Minato was crying now. The reason was that he remembered his wife's passing just after giving birth to Naruto. And while he knew he would meet her up there, Naruto, on top of facing the burden of the Kyuubi no Yoko, would have to face it as an orphan. However, the only thing he could do right now was to cry, for he knew that any second now, his last breath would vanish and he would leave this plan of existence. He only had maybe a couple of minutes before the Shinigami came to collect his soul. Approaching his crying son, Minato managed to dry his own tears and held Naruto like any parent would when they wanted to calm their offspring. He hugged Naruto with utmost intensity, before one Anbu member and Jiraiya arrived. They saw the scene being placed and looked down in sadness, for this moment would never happen again. Jiraiya-sama, said Kakashi, but was interrupted when Jiraiya looked on the ground in dismay. Let them be together, Kakashi. This will be first and last time father and son get to spend some time together. The sad part is that Naruto won't even remember, but at least Minato could go to the beyond with the notion of what it meant to be a father, said Jiraiya with the utmost control on the outside, but on the inside, he was holding his tears from falling down his face. However, just looking his prodigy crying as well, Jiraiya wasn't strong enough and just let it all out. He began to cry as well, knowing deeply what Minato was thinking at the moment. They saw the light vanish from Minato's eyes, but instead of falling on the ground hard, the blonde Hokage gently laid Naruto on the ground next to him on the ground before letting gravity run its course. After that, Jiraiya approached the two blondes and kneeled next to Minato, closing his eyes and offering a silent prayer for the gods. While this was going on, Kakashi approached and hugged the crying baby before looking at Jiraiya to know what to do. Jiraiya-sama, what should we do now? Asked Kakashi, earning the Sanin's attention. We'll take him to Sensei. I believe he's at the Hokage's office right now, dealing with the emergency issues. I believe Minato here gave instructions to him, said Jiraiya, earning a nod from Kakashi. At the Hokage's office . The Sandaime Hokage was found once again seating behind the most honored table in all of Konoha like he did at the last Great Shinobi War. However, the old man was really feeling how old he was when he first seated after stepping down. It was astounding the pressure right now, and Hiruzen Sarutobi had to control his breathing so as not to feel crushed. Right now, the entire village's decisions were resting on his shoulders, and he was old enough to wish that someone would be on his shoes without even thinking of being selfishness. However, the only person ready to deal with the responsibilities of a Hokage right now was dead, so the Sandaime Hokage would have to step up once more. For now, the only order he had to give was for the remaining shinobi to gather a complete report of the damages sustained by the village because of the Kyuubi no Yoko. Right now, the hospital was filled with both wounded shinobi and civilian waiting to be treated, and Sarutobi feared that he would have to use other spaces for treatment. When both Jiraiya and Kakashi entered the door, Sarutobi managed to see the blonde infant on Kakashi's arms and sighed in dismay. For all his wisdom concerning shinobi aspects of life and the decisions that followed, Sarutobi was lost concerning the only offspring of one Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage and vital key to Konoha becoming victorious at the last Shinobi War. He read Minato's instructions concerning his actions and how to address his son in the future. Sarutobi saw a reason behind referring Naruto as the hero that saved Konoha from the almighty fox demon. However, his old age taught him many things as to how people deal with loss. He remembered his two students abandoning their village because of it, although he at the time cursed Orochimaru's motive for leaving. Tsunade, though, left the village because she couldn't deal with the pain of losing both her little brother and her soon-to-be husband because of the war. So, the professor, as he became known throughout his career, knew that showing Naruto to the population with the truth would cause hatred and grief to those who, as Tsunade, suffered so much. Sarutobi knew that the fox would be the main reason of hatred from the population, and he feared that Naruto could end up being a scapegoat. Not to mention being on the end of a considerable number of individuals who think that ending the boy's life would be the solution to their problems. Ah, Jiraiya, I only wished you could take this seat instead of me, but you wouldn't like that, don't you? Said Hiruzen, before seeing his student's dejected look. Normally, the perverted Sannin would give a nasty reply, saying that he wouldn't be able to do his research and even making something up about maintaining his spy network, but now he didn't have what to say to the old man. Sarutobi could only smile in sympathy for a man who just lost the man he always considered his son. Don't worry, Jiraiya, I know of your loss. Minato-kun was like a son to me, but I can't imagine how it must be for you right now. Now, we must discuss about the boy in Kakashi's arms, said the Sandame, earning a nod from Jiraiya and Kakashi. Minato-kun, before leaving with his son, entrusted me with the welfare of the village until I find one suitable to be the Godime Hokage. I know it will take a while for that to happen, but at least I'll have some help running this village. I'll instate both my teammates and create a council that will aid the Hokage in all matters, both civilian and shinobi, said Hiruzen, earning a nod from those present. The reason was simple: Konoha was devastated. The village needed money to rebuild the village and medical supply for the wounded. However, a hidden shinobi village's income is measured by the amount of missions they do. So the shinobi population would have to step up and carry out the immense pile of mission requests that was so carefully separated. Given the recent events, Sarutobi could deny all mission requests and he would have a valid reason for such. However, if he did this, he would condemn Konoha's future for two reasons. 1. Other hidden villages would know of the weakened state and start another war, something which the hidden village in the leaves couldn't afford at the moment, and the other reason would be that the minute one mission is denied, the village's reputation would decrease, thus not receiving as much missions as before. Looking at the list once more, Sarutobi let out another sigh and looked at his student. According to Minato, he wished that the truth behind the Fuinjutsu sealing technique to be shared with the public, and that Naruto is to be referred as the hero that saved Konoha from the Kyuubi no Yoko. And while I tried to dissuade him of this idea, I cannot do things differently. Minato deserves this much from us. Sandame exposed Minato's wishes regarding Naruto, but both Kakashi and Jiraiya frowned regarding the blonde's naivety. However, all those in the room knew better than denying the Yondaime Hokage's wishes. It was the least that they could do for Minato and give a silent hope that Naruto has as less trouble as possible while growing up. Sensei, where is he going to live? Who is going to take care of him? Asked Jiraiya, to which Sarutobi frowned and fell into a thinking pose once again. Truly, Naruto needed treatment for the first 2 years, in order to be able to grow up healthy and nourished. Sarutobi didn't think that far ahead for simple reasons. The entire village just suffered sufficient damages, and very soon, all the decisions would fall to him and his council. Now, he would get to assign someone to take care of the child. Now this was the tough part. He couldn't think of someone to take care of this child without thinking of taking advantage and try to kill him. He had no choice but to take care of the child, at least until he had enough age to join Konoha's orphanage. I'll take him to my house and assign someone of the Sarutobi clan to take care of him until he is 4 years old. After that, he'll be placed at the orphanage. He'll be well taken care of, said Hiruzen, hoping he would be right in the future. Jiraiya and Kakashi nodded at the idea, knowing that the Sandame Hokage would be busy this whole time to take care of baby Naruto. Now, Jiraiya, I have an S-ranked mission for you, starting now. Our reputation outside the village walls must be maintained. Spread the word to your spy network about our welfare. If the clients know of our situation right now, they will spread the word and we're doomed. Kakashi, join your Anbu squad and assist the remaining shinobi with anything they need. I'll expect a full report of the damages sustained by the village in about 2 hours, said Sarutobi, earning a nod from both Jiraiya and Kakashi. Jiraiya immediately vanished and Kakashi would as well, but he first placed Naruto in Sarutobi's care, before disappearing via Shunshin no Jutsu. Sarutobi, after looking at the vanishing Kakashi, looked down to the sleeping blonde. Naruto was sleeping so peacefully that Sarutobi couldn't help but smile at the innocent smile of a baby. Leaving the office, he headed towards the Sarutobi clan's compound. At the Sarutobi compound Sarutobi Hiruzen walked inside with a blonde infant. The remaining members of the clan approached the old man and asked him about the village's damages. Asuma, my son, the fox nearly destroyed the village, but the Yondaime managed to stop it. I'm waiting for the damages report. I have to deal with something first, though. Is Makoto-chan here? Asked Hiruzen, before hearing the voice of his daughter coming from behind the old man. The Sandame's daughter was stunning in every way. Black hair and green eyes, with a perfect skin, Makoto earned a lot of stares. For some reason, yet unexplained by Konoha's medic department, she couldn't have a baby of her own and it frustrated both her and her husband, one Sarutobi Kato. Kato was a chunin of Konoha and very proficient with the bow staff style of fighting his father invented. Makoto didn't want to become a ninja simply because her father's stories kind of scared her. She looked at the eyes of her father and saw the huge bags below his eyes. The events that happened in Konoha did that to people. However, when she looked at the infant, it was an instant motherly reaction. She ran to her father and grabbed the little boy as he began crying. Shish, it's okay little one, you don't need to worry. I'm here, whispered Makoto to Naruto's ear, before the baby's noise subsided. Naruto instantly opened his blue eyes and looked at Makoto for a while. However, just as everyone knew he would cry once more, the baby began to smile and extend his little arms and try to caress Makoto's face, earning a giggle from the woman, who dreamed of this happening. So cute, this little boy. Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled at the scene and wondered if Naruto was the missing piece of Makoto's happiness, just as Makoto was to Naruto's life. Makoto-chan, we have to talk about this little infant, said Hiruzen, to which Makoto looked at him before nodding and walking to the living room. After everyone got comfortable on their seats, Sarutobi Hiruzen began explaining everything what happened. As he explained, Asuma and Kato frowned upon hearing that Kyuubi was sealed inside the baby, but Makoto was already showing signs of crying. Poor little baby, she thought. To grow up not only carrying such a burden but also missing the warmth of a parent for comfort. She could only imagine the hardship young Naruto will face in the future. When Sarutobi explained that he took upon himself to raise the boy until his 4th birthday, Asuma protested right away. Father, are you serious? This boy harnessed the fox inside of him. If the fox escapes, he'll kill us all, shouted Asuma, before looking at the serious face of his father. Asuma, Minato's seal is perfect. Even Jiraiya, one of the Sannin, attested its effectiveness. We are safe from the Kyuubi's power. In regards to my choice, I'm sticking with it, stated Hiruzen, before turning to his daughter. Makoto-chan, I know of your situation as being unable to conceive children, so I'm asking you a favor to take care of little Naruto at least until he is 4 and able to step up for himself, asked Hiruzen, before watching his daughter with apprehension. The Sandame Hokage loved his daughter like no other, even more when his wife passed away and she was not only their offspring, but a living memory of his beloved. He wanted her to accept Naruto like the son she never could, for 2 reasons. First, he felt devastated when Makoto explained that she wouldn't be able to conceive, and second because she was the only one in Konoha who would provide unconditional motherly love to little Naruto without having second intentions. Makoto, for her part, looked at her father and then at her husband for a while. She wanted to say yes right away, but if she was to be a mother to Naruto then Kato was to be his father, so she couldn't do this without him. It was his smiling nod that filled her heart with joy, since she would be finally able to take care of someone like her own son. To-san, I'll gladly take care of little Naruto just like his mother would have done had she been alive right now. You can trust me, concluded Makoto, earning a smile from Hiruzen, before hearing Kato's approval as well of taking care of the blonde. Thanks a lot, you two. I'll issue one of the family physicians to look after him from time to time, so as to make sure nothing is wrong with the boy. Now, let's settle little Naruto somewhere warm since I'll have to return to my office, said Hiruzen, to which Makoto nodded and carried her surrogate son to his new room. At the Hokage's office. After arriving at his office, he saw the report on top of his table and frowned immediately. He knew about the devastation since he saw the whole thing happening. But numbers managed to give him a precise idea of Konoha's losses because of the attack, and quite frankly, he wasn't looking forward to reading it. Upon seating at his chair, he controlled his breathing and opened the scroll to read its contents. As he read through the report, the old man couldn't help but feel useless to this whole ordeal. The village's population took a heavy blow and almost 40% of it was dead. Sarutobi was a firm believer that while the village walls are destroyed, the village would still live on since the ones living within would rebuild as much as possible. However, not only the buildings were destroyed, but also many lives were taken away. Flipping the page, Sarutobi was now reading the shinobi report regarding their numbers right now and those who lost their lives trying to defend the village from the monster. The greatest loss was on the Chunin department, since they are supposed to be on the front lines. The Junin suffered as well, since they were second in line with the Genins following close behind, since they were responsible for securing as much of the civilian population as possible. The Anbu division was similar to the Junin. The old Hokage grabbed an empty parchment and began taking notes. The surviving Genins will be tested to see if they could become Chunin and assume the C and low B ranked missions, and the Junin would take the high B to a ranked ones. Sarutobi could say he was pleased with the fact that S-ranked missions weren't amongst the requests, or else he would have to deploy a team of elite Junin to do it. Thinking in details, the improvised Chunin test would consist of combat fighting to test their abilities and a field test to see if they have what it takes to perform tougher missions. Normally, they would be tested in terms of teamwork as well, however due to their circumstances, the test would have to be cut short. Sarutobi also wrote about the academy. For Konoha to re-establish its military strength, the academy would have to increase its training regimen. Because of the attack, the total shinobi losses consisted of 30%, which meant close to 500 to 1,000 ninjas that would need to be replaced. After writing about the new academy, Sarutobi looked at the next page, which contained the wounded both civilian and ninjas. One thing was sure, he would request a meeting with the daimyo for some medication supply. As Konoha stands, word can't be spread of its necessities, so the Sandaime would have to meet with the daimyo in person, explaining the situation and requesting immediate assistance. Also, Sarutobi saw the damage to the buildings and frowned once more. The damage was extensive and the old man doubted Konoha had the human resources to build everything from scratch. He would have to contract some engineers and architects for the village's reparation, however this subject he would leave with the council as it's not shinobi related. For now, it was all he could do at the moment as he finished reading the report. "Genma, please appear before me," yelled Sarutobi, before the Chunin appeared. "What do you request of me, Lord Hokage?" asked Genma as he kneeled in respect of the old man. "Genma, please assemble my teammates Homura and Kaharu as well as all the current clan heads. I must address them right away," ordered Hokage, earning a nod from Genma, before he vanished in thin air. Not even a half an hour later, all those who were summoned were present at the Hokage's room. "Thank you all for coming despite the recent events. I know that everyone in this room sustained great pain because of the Kyuubi no Yoko, however I will address certain aspects in order for our future to be bright. First of all, Homura and Kaharu are to create a council that will assist the Hokage in all matter that do not concern shinobi. I trust that you two will be able to provide me with enough help for me to be able to secure the village's welfare and prosperity. Now, I've read the damage report and found that our shinobi force was heavily reduced. So it will be up to us to help increase our numbers once more. The clan heads and I will gather tomorrow to create a new Chunin exam for the existing genins to progress and take the huge pile of missions. Also we'll think of ways to improve the academy regimen in order to improve the quality of our future shinobi. Any questions so far?" asked Sarutobi, before he saw the Nara clan head raise his hand. "Hokage-sama, if I may ask, how did the Yondaime manage to defeat the fox? I know it's not related to your explanation so far, but the village deserved to know the truth," said Shikaku, before seeing the new Hokage sigh in dismay. "I apologize for not explaining to you about it, as I had a lot to process in my mind. I'll explain everything to you, said Sarutobi, as he began to explain the story behind the fox's sealing on Naruto. The old man told them everything, of course leaving the part where Uzumaki Naruto is the son of the Yondaime. To say the clan heads were surprised would be an understatement. They all heard Minato's wishes to Naruto being treated as the hero that saved Konoha from the wrath of the fox, and while some of them felt pity of the boy, others thought the opposite. Of course, those who wished against his living were those who sustained a great number of losses and couldn't put it past them to realize that the boy did nothing to receive such death sentence. I'll soon address the population to explain the same thing I'm explaining to you all and tell them about this village's hero as per Minato's wishes. That will be all for now, and I'll see everyone tomorrow for the meeting, said Sarutobi, before seeing the clan heads along with Homura and Kaharu leaving the office. However, only one remained and Sarutobi addressed him. What is it, Kakashi-san? Asked Sarutobi, seeing the frown in dismay from the man who thought of Minato as his father. Hokage-sama, pardon me, but I'm concerned about Naruto's safety after you tell the news to the population. They will certainly think of a way to kill him in hopes of getting rid of the fox, and we can't let Sensei's son unprotected, stated Kakashi, earning a nod in understanding from the Hokage. Kakashi-san, my son-in-law will be responsible for his well-being until I can find a suitable suitor to protect him at the age of 4. He is one of my clan's finest, and no civilian would dare break in my clan's house and try assaulting Sarutobi Kato. Also, both Asuma and I live there as well, so I believe Naruto will be well protected. I know you're concerned about the boy Kakashi, but right now we have most urgent matter to attend, like the village's reconstruction, said Sarutobi, earning nod from Kakashi before the silver-haired man vanished. At night inside the Sarutobi compound. Sarutobi Hiruzen did not require much sleep in his life. Even in his old age, the Sandaime Hokage was always alert to his surroundings and only needed close to 4 to 5 hours of sleep. However, tonight he would settle for a full 8-hour sleep, after what happened today. After the meeting in his office, he assembled the villagers and explained what happened and about one Uzumaki Naruto as being the hero of Konoha. However, after he explained, the villagers immediately began to shout for the child's elimination as expected. While the old man knew about this, he expected that some of them understood the boy's side, but instead he had a unanimous vote. It wasn't until Sarutobi unleashed his killing intent that the crowd stopped talking in fear of unleashing the professor's wrath. Now, Sarutobi knew that perhaps his son-in-law wouldn't be enough to protect Naruto. He would have to place an Anbu to protect the house from the outside in order to prevent anyone from breaking in the compound's territory. He conversed with his son-in-law and explained that he would be full-time with his wife taking care of the baby instead of doing missions for the village. Kato at first urged the man to reconsider, but after some reasoning from the old man, he accepted his duty and gave an oath to protect Naruto like he would protect his own son. Closing his eyes, Sarutobi was in less than 5 seconds, already asleep as he would need his full energy tomorrow. At Naruto's room. The infant was asleep as well. He had a lot of milk from Makoto and now he felt like sleeping just like any baby whose stomach was full. However, inside of him, someone wasn't happy as sounds of screaming could be heard. The fox demon was responsible for almost leveling the entire village, and now here he was trapped inside a baby. He would slam his body on the cage, but to no avail since the seal placed in front of it prevented the fox from escaping. Damn that puny human, how dare he do this to the almighty Kyuubi no Yoko. I'll skin him alive for this, screamed Kyuubi, clearly not bothered that Minato was already dead because of the sacrifice that he needed to do. His chakra was flaring like crazy inside Naruto's stomach as the fox tried everything to break free of his prison. The seal, though, wouldn't allow it as it managed to harden the cage once more, thus preventing the chakra to leave the cage. However, the seal wasn't strong enough to contain the fox's chakra and Kyuubi was able to leak some of it outside the cage. From the outside, Naruto woke up violently and began to scream with pain as the fox's chakra began to surround his body. Almost immediately, the chakra was felt by everyone inside the compound as they rushed to Naruto's room. The Sandaime felt it the second it emerged and cursed the heavens for not giving the village some peace after everything that happened. He was the first one to arrive at the scene and saw the red chakra pouring out of Naruto's tiny body. Afterwards, Kato, Asuma, Makoto and Naruto's medic Nin arrived as well. Father, what's happening? I thought you said the seal would keep Kyuubi at bay, shouted Asuma, but Sarutobi wouldn't hear it and inspected the seal. The seal didn't break, it's still intact, so Kyuubi must be leaking its chakra somehow, thought the Sandaime as he considered doing something to subdue the fox's chakra back to the seal. The old man Hokage would do something with his limited Fuinjutsu knowledge, but out of nowhere, the seal on the blonde's stomach began to shine for a while, before the red chakra disappeared. However, Naruto's pain didn't stop and the medic Nin rushed to see what was causing such pain. Makoto was holding her heart and barred her face on her husband's chest. She didn't want to see her surrogate son like this, she didn't want to hear him cry any longer. The medic began to scan the little body to see where the pain was coming from, until he reached the region of Naruto's eyes. Sighing in dismay, he used the basic healing technique around Naruto's eyes, thus subsiding Naruto's pain entirely. The boy stopped crying and soon fell asleep. Haosho-san, what's the problem? What happened with him? Asked Sarutobi, clearly concerned after he saw the man using the medic technique on Naruto's eyes. Sandaime-sama, it's with great sadness that I tell you this and I hope that you along with your family can understand the seriousness of this situation. I don't know why or how it happened, but when I scanned Naruto's body, particularly his eyes, I found that the optic nerve was severely damaged. I believe that it happened due to overexposure to Kyuubi's poisonous chakra, explained the medic, but by the looks of those present, they didn't understand the implications. Sir, when said nerve is damaged, the main organ function is eliminated, explained the medic, this time earning gasps from both Hiruzen and Makoto who finally understood what happened to the boy. Makoto dropped on the floor unconscious and Kato grabbed her while Sarutobi Hiruzen could only speak a certain number of words. So, you are saying that Naruto, said Sarutobi, not daring to complete the sentence, but unfortunately, the doctor filled in the blanks. Naruto is blind, sir, concluded Haosho as he looked at the old man Hokage who this time didn't care if others saw him being weak. The Sandaime Hokage cheeks were stained with tears, both for him and for Naruto who wouldn't even be able to cry, because of what happened. Oh my god Minato, what will happen to you son now? Thought Hiruzen as he saw the rain beginning to fall. Are you crying as well Minato? For yet another burden has been placed on your son. 4 years had passed ever since people discovered that Naruto would never see in his life. His optic nerves were so damaged and no doctor managed to heal Naruto's sight after close to 1 month of trying. At first, Makoto was a wreck, feeling for her surrogate son, what will soon to be his worst nightmare in years to come. Sarutobi Makoto knew from books on the subject, that a blind person oftentimes suffers far worse than normal people, since for Naruto to learn anything, he wouldn't be able to process anything using his eyes and of course, would have to use his other senses like touch, smell and hearing. The little fellow was now sleeping on his bed and even though he already knew his disability, Makoto was able to see that her surrogate son was smiling. By seeing this, she couldn't help but smile upon seeing Naruto put up a strong front despite being a handicapped. I have to be as strong as him with this if I want him to count on me for comfort in the future, thought Makoto as she landed a kiss on his forehead, before covering him a little bit for warmth. Makoto-chan, your father is calling for us in the living room, called Kato from Naruto's door, earning the gorgeous woman's attention, before she nodded. Okay honey, I will be there shortly, said Makoto, as he kissed Naruto once more and offered silent prayers for the little boy in the future, before closing the door and heading for the living room to face her father sitting on his favorite chair as he enjoyed a nice cup of tea. Makoto could very well see the bags below her father's eyes and remembered trying to reason with him to take some rest, but being rejected by Hiruzen, explaining, kindly, that until Konoha is fully rebuilt, he just couldn't afford to rest. You called for me, too-san? Asked Makoto as she entered the room, earning the attention of her father who couldn't help but smile every time he saw his loving daughter. It was like she could wash away everything that troubled the aged Hokage. My lovely daughter, I don't want to disturb your time with little Naruto, there is just one minor subject that needs to be taken care of, said Hiruzen, earning a nod from his daughter as he continued. Naruto will be 4 years old tomorrow and I wanted, at first, place him in an orphanage where he could be well taken care of. However, now that he's handicapped, that won't be possible, therefore I need to think of a suitable place for him to stay. I know you always wanted a child, but I would understand if you said you weren't prepared for taking care of a blinded child. Naruto will need someone for him 100% of the time, at least until he could learn to cope well with his disability. The question is, I wanted you and Kato-san here to adopt Naruto, but this decision is up to you two. I know Naruto has been a handful to you two because of the recent attack attempts on him and his constant crying because of the pain in his eyes, so I'll leave this decision to you two and you'll give me when you're ready to, explained Hiruzen, before he said that he would sleep for the day, leaving his daughter and son-in-law alone to talk. Makoto would give the answer right away, because during these 4 years, she developed a link with the little blonde up to the point of managing to ease his anxiety upon not being able to see. She even managed to teach, at least tried to, how to depend on other senses like hearing and smell, which on certain occasions, Naruto did manage to. Makoto remembered when Naruto recognized her smell when she entered his room once, which at the time filled her heart with joy. However, she looked at Kato to hear if he had some objections to adopting Naruto. She knew how many times people tried entering the Sarutobi compound to kill Naruto only to meet Kato's bow staff. She even remembered when a drunken Junin managed to land a genjutsu on her husband and paralyzed him. The man would have been able to invade the compound, if hadn't Asuma stopped him with his trench knives. Kato on his side wondered about the times where he had to stop people from entering the compound, and to tell the truth, he felt that the house wasn't as safe as before. He as well developed a liking to the little blonde. When Kato would train his bow staff style, he would see Naruto trying to walk on his own, falling down a lot, but never quitting. Kato was a man that respected strength and strong will, and Naruto, at the age of 4, despite all the hardships, managed to earn his surrogate father's respect. Actually, the fights he had with people that tried to break in served for training, and while he couldn't go on missions until Naruto managed to defend himself, which could take a while, he at least got to test his training against those who try to kill Naruto. Also, Kato loved Makoto more than anything, and he very well knew that she developed a motherly link with Naruto. Given this fact, he wouldn't even think of disagreeing with the Hokage on them adopting Naruto. He could already picture the number of things he could teach Naruto about being a ninja, and maybe, just maybe, if his son could manage to overcome the blindness, he could very well become a full-fledged shinobi in the future. Makoto-chan, Naruto has been as much of a son to me as he is to you. We just cannot let him go after everything we've been through as a family. I want us to teach him many things in the future, and maybe, even, teach him how to be a shinobi, even if he can't ever be one. How about we adopt him? Asked Kato, as he smiled to Makoto, who in turn threw herself at her husband and hugged with utmost intensity. Upon hearing Kato's opinion about adopting Naruto, Makoto couldn't help but throw herself in her husband's arms. Kato has a firm personality and oftentimes chose to think rationality than relying on emotion, hence why the beautiful woman thought that her husband wouldn't want to adopt little Naruto. Little did she know, though, that not only Kato had a soft spot for Naruto, but also the fact that Naruto earned Kato's respect. Honey, I thought you wouldn't want to adopt Naruto. I know how much it pained you the last time a Junin tried to assassinate him and almost got you instead. Not that I'm complaining, but why did you choose to adopt Naruto? Asked Makoto, though the smile never left her face, for as this was the moment she always carved for in her life. I admit that protecting him is tougher than I first thought, and that if it weren't for Asuma, that man would have succeeded in killing Naruto. However, throughout these 4 years, Naruto-kun earned my respect through hard work in overcoming his blindness. That kid has a bright future ahead of him if he decides to become a shinobi, and I want to teach him how to be one. Plus the fact that you wanted a kid ever since we married, said Kato as he smiled to his wife, earning a smile followed by a nod coming from Makoto. Indeed, Naruto-kun, even though blind, always managed to smile and work hard to overcome his lack of sight, but I'm a little bit worried if he decides to be a ninja. I've seen how he reacts to father's stories, stated Makoto. Chakra is a wonderful thing, Makoto-chan. With due work, Naruto can use chakra to overcome his blindness. I've seen blind shinobi just as skilled if not better than regular shinobi, because, honestly, a blind shinobi wouldn't have to worry about using his eyes for seeing, rather relying on chakra for that. Plus, he has the Yondaime's blood running through his veins. We can't deny him not following his biological father's footsteps, explained Kato, before seeing Makoto contemplate what her husband said. Not being a kunoichi, I fail to understand the very concept of chakra, my love, but if you see reason in him becoming a shinobi, I won't be in the way. Every time my father tells him stories of ninjas, I can very well see that Naruto is hypnotized. It's just a matter of time, said Makoto, earning a nod from Kato, who then ushered his wife to join him in sleeping for the day, to which she accepted. The next day Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled upon seeing the first rays of sunlight reach his window. Every time he had a good night's sleep, the old Hokage would smile for no particular reason. For him, it was a way to better clear the pending documents lying within his office desk and better deal with problems that will sure occur. Dressing his Hokage attire, Sarutobi would do his routine around the Sarutobi compound, which included visiting his still not official grandson Naruto. He wanted to know right away Makoto and Kato's decision regarding the child's adoption, but thought against it since he didn't want to pressure any type of decision. As he walked through the compound's corridors, he received greetings from his servants and family members that enjoyed waking up early. After a while, he reached Naruto's room, before being surprised that Naruto was already awake and using his hands to feel the braille. Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't help but be amazed at the little boy's determination in overcoming his blindness, and even with a few lessons on reading braille, Naruto was already able to read simple tests without assistance. Good morning, Naruto-kun. Had a good sleep? Asked Sarutobi before seeing Naruto search for the speaker by the sound of his voice, but still failing miserably as he looked to the opposite side, but still it was commendable to see the boy learning through his disability. Hi there, Ji-chan. I slept well. I had an awesome dream as well. Want to hear it? Asked Naruto, to which Sarutobi laughed out loud, before acknowledging Naruto's request to share his dream. Actually, it was about the time where the Yondaime Hokage used his ninjutsu to defeat Iwa. I dreamed that I was there with him, Ji-chan, and the nice part of it all was that even though I was blind in the dream, I managed to overcome it and managed to aid the Yondaime, explained Naruto with much enthusiasm, earning a smile from the aged Hokage. Every time this kid smiles, I can't help but smile in return. He surely can improve the mood, thought Hokage as he explained that it was indeed a nice dream, until Naruto cut the old man. Ji-chan, do you think I can become a shinobi, even though I'm blind? Asked Naruto, earning a smile from the old man who actually was waiting for said question to come. Naruto-kun, just because you're blind, doesn't mean you can't become a shinobi. It will be harder, sure, but it's not impossible. In fact, with enough training you could use your disability to your favor, said Hiruzen, before seeing Naruto display a questioned look. While others have to rely on their eyes to be a shinobi, you can't. If you really want to be a shinobi, I can find someone who can teach you how to become one without relying on your sight, but rather depending on chakra along with your other senses like hearing, touch and smell, explained the Hokage, until he saw the face of pure realization coming from Naruto, and even though his eyes displayed a lifeless green, the aged Hokage could see the will of fire emerging within Naruto's facial expressions. Really, Ji-chan? Can I really become a ninja? That's awesome. I'll be the best shinobi ever, just you see, Ji-chan. I'll be the best ever, shouted Naruto, shooting his hands up in the air, earning laughter from the Hokage. With this attitude, Naruto, there's nothing that will stop you for accomplishing your dream. Train hard and learn to live without your eyes. You'll need this type of experience before you can become a shinobi, said Hiruzen, earning a nod from Naruto before he positioned his hand on the chair, so that he could sit on it and return to his story. At the Hokage's office. After arriving at his office, Sarutobi Hiruzen scanned his desk to see the report on the village's reconstruction. 4 years ago, he and the clan heads devised a plan of action to rebuild the village along with better improving their shinobi program to a point that even with the fox's attack, the village's income didn't decrease. With Chunin and Junin handling, truth be told, more missions than they could afford to, and Jiraiya keeping bad information out of the client's ears, it seemed that the hidden village in the leaves would prosper once more in maybe 1 or 2 years. Placing the report in his first drawer, Sarutobi began to see the mission reports that already arrived from yesterday's missions. Some of them were low-ranked, mostly to help citizens to deliver important document to other countries. The other part contained A and B ranked missions that scaled from protecting caravans to top assassination missions. A few S-ranked requests reached Konoha, and those were handed by elite Junin or even ex-Anbus that chose to leave the squad in favor of better aiding the village through these desperate times. A sudden knock on the door alerted the Hokage, before he saw both Kakashi and Jiraiya entering the office. Kakashi was now dressed as a Junin instead of the regular Anbu outfit, since he was among others who chose to do missions for the village and bring income to the village's vaults. Ah, Jiraiya-kun, Kakashi-kun, nice of you to drop by this lovely morning. Take a seat. This won't take long, said Sarutobi, before he got up and picked 2 copies to hand to Kakashi and Jiraiya. What is this, sensei? Asked Jiraiya as he opened the scroll, which detailed plans about one little blonde in particular. That, my student, are my plans concerning little Naruto. Soon, he will be 4 years old, and as I said before, he would be placed in an orphanage. However, something happened 4 years ago, and I thought best not to divulge to anyone outside my family out of fear of wrong people overhearing. The truth is, Naruto lost his vision due to overexposure of the Kyuubi's chakra, said Sarutobi, pretty much dropping the bomb on the room, as silence reigned the mood entirely. Both Kakashi and Jiraiya were visibly horrified right now. Bearing the burden of the Kyuubi as an orphan was hard enough on Naruto, and now losing his sight wasn't something of this world, they both thought. Sensei, why didn't you tell me this? Shouted Jiraiya, before seeing the dead serious look in his sensei's eyes. This is a sensitive topic, Jiraiya. My son-in-law already had to protect Naruto 20 times from imbeciles whose names I rather not divulge from fear of delivering pure rampart in the jail cells. Do you imagine what would happen if these attacks would increase if they know said information about Naruto? Now, as you read throughout the scroll, I plan to teach Naruto how to be a shinobi as well as overcoming his disability, stated Sarutobi, before seeing Kakashi about to speak something. Hokage-sama, how is he doing? I know I didn't take the liberty to visit him ever since he was born, but he's my old sensei's son and, said Kakashi, but couldn't complete the sentence, since he felt kind of guilty for not visiting his sensei's legacy. Sarutobi, though, smiled and explained that Kakashi has been on missions non-stop and wouldn't have the time to visit little Naruto. Do not worry, Kakashi, Naruto is fine. My daughter is taking care of him together with my son-in-law. Also, I've been talking with them to adopt Naruto, said Hiruzen, earning a smile from both Jiraiya and Kakashi. They didn't agree with placing Naruto in the orphanage even if he could see. Jiraiya looked at the scroll once more and then spoke to the Hokage. So how do you propose to teach him in overcoming his lack of sight? Asked Jiraiya, to which Hiruzen nodded, smiling. One of our recently promoted Junin, as you know and already worked with Kakashi, happens to be blind. His name is Tobitake Tonbo. He can teach Naruto how to overcome his blindness and even teach him some basic abilities to better aid Naruto throughout the academy in 2 years, stated Sarutobi, earning a satisfactory nod from Kakashi, who in turn remembered Tonbo. For someone who rather usually relied on using the Sharingan, Kakashi was amazed at the man from moving just as good if not better than the other Junin that were on the mission. Did you talk to him yet? Asked Kakashi, to which Hiruzen negated with his head. I plan to do it today, since he has yet to return from a B-ranked mission I sent him at a village nearby. On occasions, I've read stories to Naruto about the ninja life and the boy just asks for more. He has his father's blood running through his veins and wouldn't be fair to keep him from following his father's footsteps. Also, if my daughter and her husband adopt him, they will teach him a lot, hence why he will be able to overcome his blindness and grow stronger than most. Could you both imagine not having to rely on your eyes? Naruto could very well be the strongest ninja ever, as this happens to be his dream. So, that's all I wanted to tell you too, and I hope that Tonbo-san arrives today so that I can debrief him on his next long-term mission. At the Sarutobi compound. Unaware of her father's plans concerning Naruto, Makoto was spending time with her soon-to-be son. Naruto had such energy to spend, and his laughter while having fun spoke highly of his character. Makoto would understand if Naruto grew up to be miserable because of his burdens, but on the contrary, the boy would never take that smile away from his face, and the sound of his laughter managed to warm her heart immensely. Right now, mother and son were playing at the main yard, a place where Naruto could get in contact with a number of sounds and odors that could help him in the future. Makoto took the time to explain the most basic concept of distance by the sound's volume. It took a while, but Naruto learned how to measure distance by hearing the sounds of nature. What astounded Makoto, though, was that while she couldn't hear more than a few meters away, Naruto was able to hear two birds singing on top of a tree at least 50 feet high. Okay, Naruto-kun, what do you want to play next? Asked Makoto as she began to tickle the little fella, before hearing that laughter of joy once more from the infant. Stop. Ha ha. Stop, Ka-san. Stop, said Naruto between laughter, with utmost innocence, but Makoto was stunned. She heard from some women who had children, that the best day of their lives was when their child called them mother for the first time, and now Makoto heard Naruto call her and she agreed with them. She couldn't bear her heart any longer as it grew immensely by Naruto's affection. Immediately, she hugged Naruto with utmost intensity and so much care that her tears fell freely and some of them landed on Naruto's hair. The infant was confused. Because of his inability to see that Makoto's tears were from joy, all he could know was the sniffing noises and the feel of said tears on his head. All the infant could conclude was that his mother was crying and he didn't have the life experience needed to realize that not all tears were bad. Ka-san, why are you sad? Why are you crying? Said Naruto, as he used his hands to feel his mother's face, even managing to dry her tears, thus earning a comforting smile from Makoto. I'm not sad, Naruto-kun, I'm just happy to be with you, explained Makoto, before seeing the look of pure confusion coming from Naruto, as expected. Ka-san, how can you cry and be happy at the same time? I thought that we cried only when we're sad, stated Naruto, earning a true smile from Makoto. Not all tears comes from bad emotions, Naruto-kun. There will be times in life when your heart is filled with warmth and you begin to cry tears of joy. That's why I was crying, silly, laughed Makoto, earning a smile in return from Naruto. Ka-san, what is like to cry? Asked Naruto, to which Makoto looked on in sympathy for her son. Even though you can't cry, Naruto, that doesn't mean you cannot feel either sad or happy. Crying is just an effective response of your body upon being subjected to high pain, either physical or emotional. Don't worry about never crying, Naruto-kun. If you learn how to share your emotions with those you care for, they won't need to see tears to see what you're feeling, explained Makoto, to which Naruto nodded. From a distance, Kato watched the scene with a smile on his face. He knew how long Makoto waited to hear someone call her his mother, and when he saw her smiling face, he couldn't help but smile as well. He knew he made the right decision to adopt Naruto, no matter the consequences, and he would train hard enough to be able to better protect the new member of the family until he learns how to protect himself. Suddenly, though, his senses became alert for intrusion. Hiding behind the tree nearby, Kato spotted two shinobi managing to get past by the security seals that protected the compound walls, which meant that they are at least Chunin-level shinobi, and Kato didn't need to know their intentions before engaging, but at least he could stall them by talking while he analyzed their skills. Vanishing within a small tornado, Kato appeared in front of the two Chunin. Stop right now. You who dared to invade the Sarutobi compound, tell me your reasons or I will be forced to kick you out of here and request your execution for trespassing private property without proper authorization, said Kato, before seeing the two Chunin preparing a couple of kunai, before the one with the green shirt spoke. We are here to kill the demon, all those associated with him. We'll be heroes, said the man, to which his partner only nodded, before falling in an fighting stance, that Kato recognized as an advanced version of the academy style of taijutsu. There will be no killing today as long I'm here, said Kato, until he took his bow staff and charged the Chunin, who upon seeing the imminent attack, threw a barrage of kunai at Kato. Sarutobi began twirling his weapon, thus stopping all the incoming projectiles, before jumping and preparing his weapon to hit one of them on the shoulders. The one in green suffered the hit, and in seconds, he saw that Kato landed on the ground and twisted his body to land a reverse kick to the man's chest, thus sending him flying. The other one with a blue shirt charged Kato as he began doing some hand seals for a small fire technique, Kaden Enden, fire release, fireball jutsu. Kato would laugh at the man's pathetic attempt of attack, but instead he just settled for a jutsu of his own. It's pathetic to use such an attack, take this. Kaden Gukaku no Jutsu, fire release. Grand fireball jutsu, whispered Kato as he exhaled a huge fireball, thus not only overwhelming the tiny flame but also engulfing the stupid Chunin entirely. The man tried to scream, but it was without avail as the flames consumed him entirely. He wasn't dead, but on the very least, his ninja career would be over. The one in green shirt screamed for his partner before looking at Kato, who was now directed at him for the kill. Your friend paid the price for his stupidity. Leave now and maybe I'll spare you. Stay and share the same fate of your partner. Note that everyone who tries to break in this compound will share the same fate, said Kato, as he positioned his bow staff facing the other enemy, who in turn snarled and left. Idiots, snarled Kato as he headed to the compound. He remembered the man's face and would be sure to report to the Hokage in order for him to be questioned and then arrested for treason. At night at the Hokage's office. Reviewing a couple of reports from the Anbu division concerning a threat they handled, Sarutobi lost track of time as he looked back and realized that the sun was already halfway down and the moon was already up. Such disposition was only found in his early days as Hokage, and the aged Sarutobi couldn't help but smile at the time he received the honor from the Nadaime Hokage to succeed him as Sandaime Hokage. Hiruzen couldn't help but wonder if he cared for the village as much as the Shadaime and Nadaime Hokage did. The Senju brothers, as Hiruzen called them sometimes, would stay in this very office from the time the sun emerged to the time where all lights in Konoha would be turned off, in other words, pretty late at night. Whereas Hiruzen stayed at least until dinner was served in his house, which although was later than most places, it didn't match his predecessors. Hell, even the Yondaime Hokage stayed longer than the old man. However, with old age, the brain is better prepared to deal with hard situations much faster. The old man Hokage was just about to get up from his chair when a knock soon followed, before the very presence he was waiting for entered the room. You wanted to speak me, Hokage-sama. Sorry it took a little while for my mission to end, but here I am, said Tanbo as he closed the door and positioned himself in the middle of the room. Sarutobi couldn't help but chuckle as a blinded man was actually staring at him directly, since he knew Tanbo to be blind. Not much could be described from Tanbo's close attire, since he chooses to be rather undistinguished among other with the regular Junin attire. The only difference, though, was that his head would be covered in straps, leaving only his mouth free, and he would hear his headband in front of where should be his eyes are. Ah yes, Tanbo-san, please come in. I was about to retire for the night, but you managed to get me here. This will be quick on my part. I'm issuing you on another mission. I understand you hold no ill intent against the little kid who was used to contain the Kyuubi, so you're the right choice for this mission, amongst other reasons as well. You see, Tanbo-san, little Naruto wants to be a ninja, and due to certain complications, Naruto found himself unable to learn what's necessary on his own, thus needing someone to tutor him in such aspects. That's why I thought of you to be his tutor, at least until he enrolled in the academy, said Sarutobi, before looking at Tanbo, trying to gauge his reaction, but to no avail. The straps covering his entire face kept the Hokage from studying any sort of facial emotions. Also, Tanbo trained himself hard since not even his body moved. Tanbo, for his part, wondered about the catch in what the Hokage explained so far. The Kyuubi kid was never the center of Tanbo's hate, but that couldn't be a reason for placing him to tutor the brat. Hokage-sama, not to say that I'm honored that you'd choose me as such, why do you feel I'm the one to teach Naruto-san? Surely, are tons of other Junin in Konoha who would be better fitted to train him? Asked Tanbo, to which Sarutobi nodded. As I said, Naruto had certain complications, and a said complication is the most important reason of my choice in placing you for his tutorage. You see, a day after Naruto was born, I placed him in my house to be well taken care of until he would be 4 years old. However, one night, the fox's chakra enveloped his body. You very well know that the fox's chakra is poisonous, so on that night, the fox's chakra hit Naruto's eyes with force, thus damaging his optic nerve severely. Naruto is just like you, Tanbo-san. Naruto is blind, explained Sarutobi with a heavy heart, and Tanbo could feel it since he learned to rely on other senses just like any blinded individual had to if they wanted to live. He could very well see that the Sandaime cared much for little Naruto. I understand, Hokage-sama, so you want me to teach him how to be a ninja despite the disability we share. What will be the topics of my teaching? Asked Tanbo, to which the Hokage wiped his tears away. Apart from of course teaching him how to overcome blindness, I believe it would be adequate to teach him some physical abilities such as taijutsu, agility and stamina. Also some chakra exercises as well, like tree walking and water walking, explained Hokage, before seeing that Tanbo was about to express something. Hokage-sama, for Naruto to overcome his blindness, his notion of chakra would have to be dealt with sooner. I developed techniques that happen to use chakra for guidance. After that, we can focus on the physical. When can I start, Hokage-sama? Asked Tanbo, to which Hokage smiled and said that he could very well rest for the night and then present himself at the Sarutobi compound tomorrow at 10 in the morning, which Tanbo accepted and left the room via Shunshin. Afterwards, the Hokage closed the door to his office and left towards his house with a smile on his face, upon finding someone to tutor Naruto. At the Sarutobi compound. 5 minutes later, he was already inside the compound as he saw his lovely daughter taking care of some plants that were inside the living room. So daughter, have you and Kato reached a decision about Naruto's adoption? Asked Sarutobi, before seeing that smile on his daughter's face, thus telling him everything he needed to know. Okay then. Go and call Kato-san. I have good news to speak to both of you, smiled Sarutobi as he reached his favorite chair and seated before seeing his daughter reach her husband. It seems Naruto's future won't be so dark, after all, thought Hiruzen as he drank a cup of tea, while wondering about his new grandson's future as a shinobi. After leaving the Hokage's office, Tanbo went to his house in order to prepare his material for young Naruto to study under his tutelage. The man couldn't help but feel pity for the boy for sharing the same disability and of course, sharing the same dangerous path he faced upon growing up. To top that off, Naruto was the container of the one to whom the population generated their anger in a rather absurd way. Sometimes, being blind had its advantages, Tanbo reasoned, and one of them was that no matter how much pain he endured on his path, nothing could top the pain he had to endure when he lost his sight. In a way, Naruto was lucky from not losing his eyes later in life. Another side of the pain, namely the emotional, occurred when sight was suddenly taken away from you and darkness followed. As he reached the set of stairs that would lead to his apartment, he didn't even need to use chakra to see the path and the doorknob as he opened the door to his apartment. Another quirk of being blind was that light was a cost he didn't have to worry about as he began to change into some light clothes, before going to sleep. However, before he could his much-deserved sleep, he heard someone knocking on his door, thus awakening him from his almost slumber. Expanding his chakra, he could very well see who was at the door inside, since this person wouldn't leave him alone and he very well knew the time, even though he couldn't see. Getting out of the bed, he opened the door before seeing the woman in front of him gasp at the utter darkness inside the man's apartment. Jeez Tanbo, every time I look at your apartment I got chills down my spine, said the woman, before seeing Tanbo sigh in dismay. Sorry there Anko, since I'm blind, I kind of don't worry about light and all. What do you need? Asked Tanbo, earning a snort from Anko, before she placed both her hands on her waist. I was wondering if you have any beer inside, I'm real thirsty and no one at the bar wanted to sell more of the good stuff, complained Anko, before seeing a smile on her neighbor's face. I think they know you too well Anko. I'd be accurate to believe that one more and you'll be summoning snakes to scare anyone who makes a pass at you. I wonder what happened to the last guy who did it, though. I swear, the snake was 20 feet high and I clearly remembered the sounds of ribs breaking. How much was it? 10. Laughed Tanbo, before dodging a taunting punch on his arms, which at first scared Anko, but she was getting used to see a blind man having better instincts than a normal shinobi. I'll go get your beer Anko. I would invite you to come in, but as you can see, you wouldn't see a damn thing, said Tanbo as he went back to his apartment while laughing at the joke he pulled, but Anko only snorted at the blind smart remark. Here you go Anko and don't scream too much, I happen to have sensitive ears, said Tanbo, before once again laughing his off, before entering his apartment once more. Tanbo happened to graduate at the same time as the snake mistress Anko Mitarashi and he was one of the few who didn't judge her because she was apprenticed to the snake Sanin. Because of that, they befriended each other over time and even got to rent near apartments. They would help each other, with Tanbo faking to be her boyfriend when she wanted to ditch a guy and Anko teaching him some quirks about how to detect human behavior without resorting to the eyes. Working so much with Morino Ibiki, Konoha's head of interrogation, she learned how to catch someone lying or either trying to dismiss some important issue they don't want answered. In fact, This very disability was what caused Tonbo to fail his Junin exams many times before. One of the exams consisted of taking information out of an enemy and being able to point whether the guy was lying or not. As soon as he reached his bed, Tonbo thought about his meeting with young Naruto tomorrow and the material he needed to gather for the boy. Going to his library of books written in Braille, he picked up a few that were vital to Naruto's growth as a blind shinobi. They consisted of chakra introduction, chakra control, and some low-level ninjutsu. He picked one for physical exercises, however this last one would be used when Naruto managed to use his chakra for guidance. After that, he went to sleep knowing that the next 2 years will be full of surprises as, according to the Hokage, little Naruto was determined and full of energy. At the Sarutobi compound . The next day, Tonbo was in front of the Sarutobi compound's gate as he rang the bell to alert the family of his presence. Within minutes, the Hokage himself answered the door, surprising Tonbo greatly. Greetings Tonbo-san, I can see that punctuality is one of your qualities. Please come in so I can introduce you to my humble family, said Hiruzen as Tonbo nodded, before following the Hokage back to his house. As he entered, the man used chakra and images appeared in his mind's eye like a sonar. He, then, began following Hiruzen around without the need of using his instincts or any other of his senses to aid him. This technique was his creation and it permitted him to substitute his eyes with chakra by sending a sort of chakra pulse all around which would transfer the images to him, through his other sensitive organs, like nose, ears and tact. Also his skills would grant him an ability close to the Hyuga's Dujutsu, however not fully as he couldn't see the tenketsus, but rather a blurry vision of the chakra circulatory system. This said ability was what made him gasp once he looked at the living room and saw 5 chakra systems. He recognized 4, which belonged to, respectively, the Hokage, Jiraiya, Hitaki Kakashi and Sarutobi Kato. However, it was the 5th chakra that surprised him as it belonged to the little infant who was standing next to a woman he didn't know. I can't believe he's just 4 years old, his chakra capacity is bigger than a genin already. His chakra coils are considerably thick for someone his age, but I have no doubt it will grow at least this size in a while, meaning that by the time he is 6 years old, he will possess more chakra than a chunin. I guess, chakra control will be the focus of his training. I'd imagine him using my technique and receive the entire village's landscape. As some of you know or might not know, this is Tonbo and just like Naruto-kun, he also lost his sight. I gave him a mission to tutor little Naruto on how to be a shinobi despite his lack of sight. Tonbo-san, I trust you already know my student Jiraiya and Hitaki Kakashi, said Hiruzen, earning a nod followed by some greeting. Also, you know my son-in-law Sarutobi Kato and his wife, my lovely daughter Makoto, said Hiruzen, before seeing Tonbo greet them as well, before moving to the little boy who was, according to Tonbo, focusing on his hearing in order to face the guest, but with no avail. Smiling in memory of himself a long time ago, Tonbo knelt to meet Naruto's height and landed his hand on his shoulder. And you must be little Naruto. It's nice to meet you. I'm Tobitake Tonbo, and you can call me like that if you want to, said Tonbo, before seeing the boy smile, before greeting the man in the most friendly way possible. Greetings Tonbo-sensei. I'm Sarutobi Naruto, smiled Naruto, earning a nod from the bigger blind that was wondering about the name sensei and actually enjoyed it. So Tonbo-san, I imagine these books you brought are for young Naruto here, asked the Hokage, earning the man's attention as he nodded and explained that they were written in Braille and their respective subjects. Meanwhile, everyone in the house was impressed at seeing the man, looking at the Hokage as he wasn't blind at all, and Makoto wondered if Naruto would learn to be like this as well. As Tonbo explained the book contents, Makoto interrupted to say that Naruto needed to eat some breakfast and that he could start the lessons afterwards, to which everyone nodded, before she left with the little blonde while holding hands, thus leaving the man inside the living room. As they gathered, Tonbo began to hear everything he needed to know, like the attempts on Naruto's life and Kato stopping all of them. The man listened and smiled upon knowing that, although Naruto lost his sight, as a result of high exposure of the Kyuubi's chakra, it enhanced his other senses, facilitating his work teaching the infant. After some time passed, the Hokage apologized before saying he must attend to a meeting with the council in order to supervise the village's reconstruction, to which everyone nodded and bid the Hokage goodbye. Kakashi and Jiraiya also left, thus leaving Kato and Tonbo to take a walk along the compound while discussing some aspects. So Tonbo-san, I trust that you'll take care of Naruto-kun's training. However, because of what's sealed inside of my son, you must be aware that people wouldn't think twice before invading this compound to kill him. I'll be here protecting him as most as I can, but there will be times when I can't reach Naruto in time to save him, and there's where you came in to protect him. I know the only reason why you never passed the Junin exams, and I also know that when it comes to fighting, there aren't many in Konoha that top your skills, said Kato as the two were reaching the main garden. Do not worry, Kato-san. I'm well aware of little Naruto's resident and also aware of what fools are capable of doing. I'll protect Naruto like he was my own son, trust me, stated Tonbo, earning a smiling nod from Kato as they suddenly saw a sight and smiled. Naruto appeared out of the kitchen and ran throughout the garden like any other kid his age would do. Kato was happy that the boy already learned how to walk and even run without falling once, as did Tonbo. For a normal person, making a big deal of someone learning to place a foot in front of the other would be considered a weird thing, but for a blinded person, it was progress. So what do you intend to teach him first? Asked Kato as he was watching his son smiling. For us blind shinobi, we need a new guidance system in order to work fully as a shinobi. I intend to teach him about chakra and some chakra-related exercises. Afterwards, I'll teach him a technique I created that overcomes one's lack of sight with chakra alone, but it will take a while. I'll also focus on physical exercises once he finishes the chakra part, and maybe, if I have more time, teach the low-level techniques that he would normally learn at the academy, explained Tonbo, earning a nod from Kato as he saw Naruto fall flat on his butt because he decided to jump all of a sudden. However, instead of crying his eyes out, the blonde infant just laughed and laughed like there was no tomorrow, which in turn made Kato laugh at the boy's innocence. Turning to walk once more, Kato moved on to more pressing matters regarding the little infant. There is something more you need to know, Tonbo-san, and that's Naruto's birthday. October 10th is Naruto-kun's birthday, but it's also the date that the population remembers those who perished under the Fox's rampage, hence why a few of them decided to invade our property last year. On this date, we Sarutobis make a line around the house to protect Naruto from the sure onslaught. Last time, we managed to capture close to 4 Chunin and a couple of Genin, said Kato, earning a nod from Tonbo. Being blind taught him how to control his anger, but the trouble these fools caused because of their idiocy was enough to set him on edge, even if he didn't show it. After a while, the two men stopped walking and entered the house to see that Naruto was in the living room with his mother while reading out loud for her. The woman couldn't help but be proud of the blonde finally being able to read and fully understand the braille-written texts and books. Hey Makoto-chan, it seems little Naruto finally learned how to read, it's amazing, smiled Kato, surprising his wife, since she didn't see him, before smiling and nodding back. She landed her hands on Naruto's shoulder softly and cuddled his hair repeatedly, before giggling at the sound of Naruto demonstrating his enjoyment. Makoto-chan, why not let little Naruto with Tonbo-san here so that he can start his tutoring? Said Kato, before seeing his wife smile and nod. Sure thing. Tonbo-san, Naruto-kun is all yours. If you need me for something, I'll be in the kitchen preparing something, said Makoto as Tonbo nodded, before she and her husband went to the kitchen, thus leaving student and sensei alone for the first time. Tonbo could see that Naruto was facing him, and he very well knew that the blonde had been training in adjusting his other senses for guidance. This will be easier than I thought Tonbo as he approached Naruto, who heard the steps coming his way and smiled towards his sensei. Hello Tonbo-sensei, said Naruto with a smile on his face, despite the green lifeless eyes. Hi Naruto, I'll be your sensei and I'll explain to you how we're going to work, stated Tonbo, earning a nod from Naruto as the man continued. I've brought books written in braille that will explain to you about chakra and chakra control exercises. This knowledge will be vital for a ninjutsu I plan to teach you. What would you say if I told you that you could use chakra to replace your eyes? Asked Tonbo, before wished he had covered his ears. Are you serious? That's awesome. I will be able to see, shouted Naruto, earning a nod from Tonbo, who considered cleaning his eardrums a little bit afterwards. Yes, you will be able to see with the usage of chakra, but first you need to know everything there is to know about it, including several exercises that will help you harness this ability. So let's get to it, said Tonbo, to which Naruto nodded enthusiastically, before receiving the first book from his sensei. The content of the book was somewhat familiar with his Ji-chan's lectures Naruto heard a couple months back as he was passing his finger through the braille test and absorbing everything like a sponge. At the Hokage's office. After arriving at his office, Sarutobi Hiruzen went to the mission reports from yesterday. It became a routine to the old man as he read through every single report. From a simple C rank to the dangerous A rank missions, he read it all and was surprised with the success rate of Konoha's missions. Out of 40 reports he read throughout the morning, 28 of them were successful with 4 non-successful, but no casualties. It saddened the old man to read that a couple of Chunin lost their lives in the line of duty. Hiruzen didn't care for names or fame, hence that any nameless ninja that died because of the mission set by the Hokage brought immense pain to his old heart. They were all brave ninja who believed in the will of fire, he thought, and he knew that they would be able to rest in peace, knowing that they did their best for the village's prosperity. The Sandaime Hokage was a keen believer of the term family, and he considered all shinobi as a part of a united family against those who wishes harm to innocent people. Immediately, the old Hokage wrote in his agenda to visit their families in order to honor their beloved and offer them his condolences. It was a practice that the Yondaime Hokage started, and Sarutobi decided to continue the tradition. Afterwards, the old man moved on to the pile of mission requests to be handled by shinobi. There were a lot of caravan protection missions and even some individual escort ones, but Hiruzen smiled upon knowing that Konoha's merchants were increasing the village's economy by trading goods with other villages. He, then, wrote the names of the shinobi he selected for each mission to be carried out, before reaching for his assistants for the briefing to be held. Yumino Iruka was just promoted to Chunin and was nominated as Sarutobi's assistant until he was fit for working at the academy, a dream he shared ever since he graduated as a genin. Iruka, the missions are ready. You can pick them up and pass them to the respective shinobi I picked, said Sarutobi, earning a bow in respect from the young Chunin, before picking up the mission requests and taking them to the mission room. Not all missions were personally assigned by the Hokage, only higher ranked and S-ranked missions, which needed a more detailed explanation in order for the mission to be carried with most excellence. Hiruzen's day was going well, until someone nodded on his door and entered without his authorization. Uchiha Fugaku changed a lot these last couple of years, and the Hokage was wary of this man. On certain council meetings, Fugaku would stay distant and didn't mutter a single word whether protesting or not. The old man wondered what Fugaku needed to talk to him about. Greetings Hokage-sama. I hereby wish for an audience with you, said Fugaku as he bowed in respect, just like a snake would, before coming from behind and stab him. Hiruzen wasn't considered the professor for nothing, and he very well knew that something was wrong, terribly wrong. Certainly Fugaku-sama, what is it that you need to speak with me about? Asked the Hokage, before seeing the Uchiha stopped bowing and focused eye to eye with the Sandaime Hokage. It came to my attention that the Anbu forces have shown interest in my elder son Itachi, and I must say it's considered an honor to the Uchiha family for such nomination. I was wondering, though, about what would his position be once in Anbu, asked Fugaku. Because of his abilities with the Sharingan, Itachi-kun will be better suited for one of Anbu's heavy assault teams. Which team, though, will be chosen by the Anbu commander? I must say that I'm impressed with your son Fugaku-sama. Not many shinobi gets drafted until reaching a considerable age. I'm sure his skills speaks highly of him to warrant such interest, said Hiruzen, while expecting the man to show his pride to his prodigy son. However, nothing indicated that Fugaku was proud of his son, and Hiruzen was wondering about such behavior inside the Uchiha compound. I appreciate the information Hokage-sama, and I'll take my leave now, said Fugaku before bowing once again and leaving the office. Hiruzen frowned at the man's attitude and immediately called for the Anbu. Within seconds, 2 of them arrived at the office as they knelt in front of the Hokage, while waiting for their orders. Your orders, Hokage-sama, said the one with the hawk mask. I'm issuing an S-rank long-term mission to you two, Hawk-san. I want you to investigate the Uchiha compound and their members for any suspicious activities. This is to remain an Anbu-level secret, ordered the Sandaime, earning a nod from the one with the hawk mask. Certainly Hokage-sama. Anything else? Asked the Anbu, which earned a nod from Sarutobi. You must use discretion in this mission, Hawk-san. No one of that clan can know you're investigating them. Focus your efforts on the clan leader Fugaku and the clan council. Call it a hunch of mine, but I suspect some hidden intentions coming from inside that compound, said the Hokage, before both nodded and vanished within milliseconds, thus leaving the aged Hokage alone to consider his last set of actions. The Uchiha clan was a force to be recognized, and each one of their members contributed greatly to both the Third Shinobi War and the village's reconstruction after suffering the Kyuubi's rampart. Nevertheless, something was going on inside the clan walls, and being someone as revered by the shinobi as he was, one wouldn't need a full hand to count the number of wrong bets he made as Hokage. He would only have to lead such a path with care, because if by chance, someone gets word of what he was doing, he would be having a major headache while dealing with a mob of enraged Sharingan users on his doorstep. The old man trusted his Anbu force, though, to keep things low while spying on Fugaku on occasions. Sarutobi would even call for his student Jiraiya to speak to him about this matter and see what he can find with the man's spying network. 6 months later. After 6 months of training, young Naruto had come a long way thanks to Tonbo's teachings. The boy grasped the knowledge needed about chakra and even got to master the second chakra control exercise, which was to walk on water using chakra. Tonbo reasoned that tree walking wasn't within Naruto's reach yet simply because he couldn't use Tonbo's technique yet. Also, Tonbo realized that when it came to chakra use, Naruto was a natural. He had high chakra reserves, but by learning several chakra control exercises, the blonde managed to use just enough for the technique he was learning. His sensei had a different theory and blamed it on Naruto's blindness. When someone is used to being blind, concepts like fear and anxiety are lost. The boy knew how to do the henge technique and the kawarimi, by using both his creativity from what he read in books and from his tact as he would pass his hands on a rock in order to feel its shape and density. Naruto managed the henge, because of a genjutsu that Tonbo used on him to implant the image of a famous shinobi called Hitaki Sakumo, and the boy, after a few tries, managed to transform into him, however the green lifeless eyes remained. The Bunshin Jutsu was hard simply because it's the least chakra taxing jutsu in the book, and Naruto just couldn't use that little chakra, despite his more than average control. Right now, the blonde was meditating in order to better control the flow of his chakra while Tonbo, Kato and Hiruzen watched in fascination. Kato and Hiruzen were astonished upon seeing the blonde's abilities with chakra, and the Hokage couldn't help but wonder if Tonbo was that good of a sensei to teach the blonde so much. Upon asking the blind man, Tonbo admitted not having a hard time since Naruto managed to learn a lot by simply reading the books. The techniques were taught by him, sure, but the chakra needed for the technique was all Naruto. The Sandaime even reasoned that Naruto's growth was because of whose blood ran through the child's veins and considered the possibility of Naruto surpassing his biological father. The last requirement Naruto needed to fulfill was Tonbo's technique called Chakra no Myaku, chakra pulse, which consisted of sending a pulse of chakra from every direction, which would send the images back to Naruto via his other senses. The blonde's first attempts were mediocre at best and no image whatsoever was transferred to him. The last, though, Naruto managed to see the outline of Tonbo's body, before the image stopped. The water walking exercise was vital for Naruto to learn the technique, since he had to maintain a constant flow of chakra pulse, just like when he needed to walk on water. Hiruzen turned to Naruto's sensei and proceeded to ask. Tonbo-san, how long did it take for you to learn this technique? Asked Hiruzen, earning the blind Junin's attention. After creating it, it took me close to 3 months to learn it. Naruto will be close, since he's been trying for over 2 months now, said Tonbo, before Hiruzen turned to look at Naruto. The old Hokage couldn't help but be proud of the blonde's accomplishment and wished the blonde could see his grandfather. Naruto, you can stop meditating now. Try the technique once again with the hand seals I taught you, said Tonbo, earning a nod from Naruto as he placed his hands together for the technique. Monkey, tiger, chakra no Myaku. Suddenly, all of them felt the immense chakra wave coming from Naruto, and Tonbo smiled since he knew that the boy finally managed to finish the technique. Naruto for his part was adjusting to this entirely new experience. Just after he finished the technique, the blonde had 360 degrees vision around him. He looked around to see what real nature was and even saw his whole body, which until now, he had never seen. The blonde was laughing while looking at his hands in front of him, before he turned around upon hearing his sensei's words. Congratulations, Naruto. You're now able to see. Tell me what your grandfather looked like, asked Tonbo as he saw Naruto adjusting himself to face the old Hokage, before smiling at the old man. Ji-chan is really old and wrinkled. What is this sound I'm hearing? It's like the sound of drums, said Naruto, confusing the Hokage at first, before he heard Tonbo laughing. That happens to be his heart beating, Naruto. This technique I've taught you not only makes you see, but also increase you other senses tenfold, hence why you're able to hear Hokage-sama's heartbeat, stated Tonbo, earning a nod followed by a smile, before a familiar smell reached Naruto's nose as he fixed his gaze at Kato, before jumping straight at him while shouting the word "To-san." Kato was surprised from hearing this, but extended his arms to receive Naruto, before adjusting his weight so as not to fall on the ground because of the fact that the blonde practically threw himself at the man. Kato ruffled Naruto's hair madly, while praising him for this new ability which earned a smile in return from Naruto. Yes, the boy was already accustomed to being blind, but like any other child, he carved for their parents' attention, and right now only one person wasn't near him and he as hell wouldn't wait another second to show her what he learned. Just as Tonbo was about to say something, he was cut off when Naruto ran to the main house, screaming for his Ka-san. At ease, Tonbo-san, you wouldn't think the boy wouldn't show this to his mother, now would you? If Naruto managed to hear my heartbeat, then he will have to close his ears upon hearing my daughters, smiled Hiruzen, before everyone followed suit on the Hokage's joke. As everyone entered home, they saw Naruto trying to help Makoto to wake up, but failing miserably since he was only 4 years old and couldn't do much. He explained, though, that he showed his new skills to Makoto and that he called her the most beautiful woman in the world, before she fainted right on the spot. His surrogate father Kato laughed a little and then kneeled to meet Naruto's gaze and smiled to the little child who just about now discovered the world outside and would only grow stronger with time. A while later at the Hokage's office. After leaving the compound, both Tonbo and the Hokage went back to his office, since Naruto overexerted himself doing the technique over and over again, so he was sleeping. The Hokage, though, wanted to talk to Naruto's sensei on a more personal level. The old man was impressed with the man's abilities to teach Naruto and wondered if he would have the same ability with normal genins. I just wanted to say congratulations, Tonbo-san. Naruto managed in only 6 months to cover a lot of theory regarding chakra and even learned how to walk on water, an exercise considered to be Chunin level. I can only wonder how he's going to be on his 6th birthday, praised the Hokage, before seeing the man nod in appraisal, before continuing. Now, tell me what your expectations regarding his training, asked Hiruzen. With your permission, Hokage-sama, Naruto-kun has some nice skills with the usage of chakra, and now that he knows my technique, I can move him to learn tree walking and some physical exercises to build stamina and increase speed. Of course, we'll be training evasion maneuvers and even get him started in one style of taijutsu for him to have an improve on in the future. I don't believe it's necessary for him to learn more ninjutsu outside the basics he already knows and the chakra no Myaku technique. I trust that you approve my schedule, Hokage-sama, asked Tonbo, earning a satisfying smile from the Hokage. No, everything is just fine, Tonbo-san. You're right about not teaching Naruto ninjutsu techniques right now. He should, first, learn how to use your technique without thinking first and also learn how to defend himself. Also, there aren't that much ninjutsu out there apart from the elemental ones, and those who don't fit the category requires a heavy load of chakra to perform. For now, your agenda will suffice, Tonbo-san. I appreciate everything you've done for little Naruto and I hope to meet you again tomorrow at the compound, said Hiruzen, as Tonbo bowed in reference before leaving the office. After hearing the door closing, Sarutobi grabbed his cup of tea and took a sip, before smiling like a teenager. At first, when he learned that Naruto was blind, Sarutobi feared about the boy's future. Also, when he saw Naruto taking longer time to learn even the simplest tasks that normal children would pick up instantly. However, while he saw that Naruto failed in learning, the boy wouldn't give up and try over and over again, until he managed to learn by using his instinct. Now, Sarutobi's grandson learned how to use chakra to see, and the man thanked Kami for his blessing of Naruto. He turned his chair and looked up to the night before, smiling as a star suddenly blinked, as if the sky was telling him an important message. Somehow. I think it's you, Minato, who's watching him over. I can see that it's your blood that runs through his veins. It's been 2 years since Naruto first learned how to see by using chakra, and his overall skills only improved with time. Chakra-related exercises were easy for him because of his adaptation regarding the chakra no Myaku technique, but while the water walking didn't require watching where you going, the tree walking exercise proved to be quite difficult for the little blonde. Because of his inability to see properly, Naruto had to use his technique together with focusing chakra on his feet to cling to the tree, hence why a little over 2 weeks was needed for him to adapt. After that, though, if one were to look for Naruto, they would be able to find him climbing everything from the compound walls to the trees that surround it. Another focus of his training was taijutsu and physical-related exercises to build stamina, endurance and his muscularity. The exercises were very demanding, and his surrogate mother even joked that Tonbo was the only person that managed to tire little Naruto. Nevertheless, in 2 years, Naruto managed to cover quite a lot of ground with such exercises by using some minor weights to his limbs at all times. Needless to say, the blonde achieved a level way higher than any child his age would, and that filled his surrogate grandfather's heart with pride as he saw Naruto run, dash, jump, dodge every single obstacle placed in the Sarutobi's courtyard with relative ease. The only problem, which was long since taken care of, was which taijutsu style to teach the blonde. Sure, he may be quite young to understand the importance of having a style, but as a Sarutobi, he would need to follow their tradition, hence why his father was assigned to teach him the Sarukan monkey fist style of fighting. At first, Kato displayed serious doubts about teaching his son this style, seeing as he lacked the necessary agility and flexibility in order to perform the katas, but Hiruzen was adamant about having some patience with Naruto, since just like everything else in the past, he would manage to learn through hard work and concentration. In the end, old Sarutobi was right, as Naruto did manage to understand how the Sarukan is supposed to be handled. By aiming fast sequences of low kicks and well-aimed punches, the Sarukan focused on overwhelming the enemy, before landing one last powerful attack, thus winning the battle. Of course, it wouldn't be possible for Naruto to learn the monkey style in 2 years, but he was taught the basic principles of the style with a couple of braille-written books to help him understand the basic katas as well as create some new ones in the future. One special attribute of the monkey style is its versatility. It's not as strict as the Gyuken, relying on the user's creativity and surprising the enemy with it. Outside his training regimen, his chakra technique granted him a scanned vision of Konoha, and so, he managed to look at people as his mother would take him to take a walk. Whereas first he would be happy to able to see, he now wished he didn't. Every time he was on the streets, he would see people looking at him with disdain and hatred, but for reasons he didn't know. Upon asking his grandfather once, he saw some hesitation on the man and his heart was beating faster than before, like he was trying to cover the real and ugly truth. How did Naruto learn to see these things? Well, after Naruto learned the chakra technique, Tonbo used 2 months to adapt the boy into further improving his other senses. He would often use the sound of a traveling kunai or shuriken to teach Naruto how to use his hearing in order to learn their trajectory by listening to the major shifts in the air the projectile makes. And also, a better understanding of the human personality by listening to the beating of their heart and what it tells you. For instance, if the heart beats faster, it means either high emotion or a sense of insecurity and even doubt. Basically, Naruto became a human polygraph. Therefore, upon hearing the sudden difference in heartbeat coming from his grandfather, he somehow knew that the old man was not telling the truth to him. Being a kid, though, he didn't pressure the issue further and worried his mind with something else. He found a new hobby by focusing chakra to his ears and nose in order to have a better grasp of the nature in the compound's backyard. He could hear the distinguishing and relaxing sound of the river near the compound. He could feel the gentle wind blowing in his face and body and even smell the different aromas of his mother's garden. Speaking of Makoto, a couple months ago, she attended at the hospital to take a better look at her condition, which prevented her from having a baby, and almost fainted when the head doctor told her of a cure that was found by a doctor in Lightning Country and that after a minor surgery, she would be able to be pregnant. Upon telling the great news at home, Kato smiled, as did Hiruzen, not by the news itself but what it did to make Makoto so happy. It was actually when Naruto heard it that he gave them a fantastic idea. Okasan, does that mean I'll have a little brother or sister? Asked Naruto, before seeing that Makoto and Kato looked at each other before both heartbeats increased, but this time Naruto knew the reason. And what you know? The surgery was a success and a month later, Makoto appeared with a positive pregnancy test. The family was overjoyed with the news of a new member joining in 9 months and Naruto couldn't wait to be with his Otudo. Now, 6 years old Naruto was having fun in the backyard of his house while the grown-ups discussed his growth. Tanbo, Hiruzen and Kato were discussing the blonde's improvement in the many ninja arts and Hiruzen appraised Tanbo for his skills in teaching. Well Tanbo-san, once more you went beyond my expectancies regarding Naruto's training. I have a lot of confidence in his future now because of your training, smiled Hiruzen, earning a nod from Kato as he too thanked the blind Junin on number of occasions. Nonsense Hokage-sama, what I did was merely teaching him the chakra no Myaku technique and point him in a few directions here and then. Naruto indeed learns better on his own after first learning the theory. I can guarantee that he will become a strong shinobi in the future, said Tanbo, earning a smile from the Hokage who now considered Naruto's training and admission test into becoming a Junin sensei for genins. Well, then, since you managed to train Naruto like you did, I will grant your wish Tanbo-san. As of tomorrow, a new crop of genins will graduate and I'm placing you as a Junin sensei for one of them, ordered Hiruzen, before seeing Tanbo bow in respect to the old man. Actually, the blind Junin was finding hard to contain his joy at being granted a team of genins. Teaching Naruto and seeing how much the blonde learned under his care kind of filled his heart with pride and he knew he could do a good job with the new genins. Thank you Hokage-sama, I shall not disappoint you, said Tanbo. Nonsense my friend, if what you did to Naruto is any indication, then you'll do wonders for the new genins. Report to my office tomorrow to choose your team, ordered Hiruzen, earning a nod from Tanbo, before he vanished from the house and appeared at the garden where he knew the blonde would be, thus leaving Kato and Hiruzen alone to discuss another issue regarding Naruto. There's another aspect of the fact that new academy students will graduate and the fact that a new crops of students will join the academy, so they were discussing the possibility of little Naruto attending the academy in order to socialize with children his age. Of course, that was easier said than done, since no matter how much the blonde was accustomed to his lack of sight, the chances of Naruto being bullied because of this was indeed high. However, while such a fact remained, also the academy was Naruto's final test to lead a normal life despite his blindness. Knowing how to socialize, how to deal with those who only wish him harm, amongst other issues were and still or considered vital for a child to grow into a respectful adult. So, even though Naruto may have his respective hardships in life, both father and grandfather were confident in his abilities when dealing with whatever appears in front of him. With Naruto . Naruto was feeling nature around him where the sound of leaves suddenly converging to a particular place alerted him to a new presence. Now, by instinct alone, Naruto activated the chakra no Myaku technique and saw the shape of his sensei behind him with his arms crossed and a smile could be seen. Naruto smiled in return, before getting up and turning to face the blind Junin, even though it didn't matter much, seeing that his chakra technique granted him an all-direction vision. I see you grew accustomed to the technique Naruto-kun, that's good, said Tanbo, earning an energetic nod from Naruto. Thanks Tanbo-sensei. So, what will we be learning today? A new jutsu perhaps? Asked Naruto, before seeing Tanbo laugh at the boy's growing enthusiasm. However, his face soon turned to a serious demeanor as the news he was about to give may be a little too much for the boy to handle at the moment. He damn well know that once a blind person gets accustomed to a certain someone, it's hard to hear that said person won't be able to be with him anymore, but just like time, one must move on and Naruto needs to experience new things. Not today Naruto-kun. Sorry. In fact, I came here to say that there isn't much for me to train you that you couldn't accomplish on your own in time or either by a much more skilled sensei than me. My goal was to tutor you in how to overcome your blindness and train you in the basic ways of a shinobi. From here on out, you'll be learning new things, possibly from another Junin or at the Ninja Academy, said Tanbo, right before his heart felt for the blonde the minute he saw the sad look on Naruto's face at the revelation. You're leaving Tanbo-sensei, why? I thought we had a great time together, said Naruto on the verge of crying, but he was surprised to see Tanbo in front of him, while kneeling to meet Naruto's level, before caressing the blonde's head. Of course, our time together was great Naruto-kun and I'm immensely proud of your achievements. However, as a Junin of this village, it will be needed of me to perform duties for Konoha. Also, you're growing as well, Naruto. There will be the time when you earn your Hitai and become a genin together with those your age and, then, Chunin and so forward. We have to be on constant movement, in order to perceive the bigger number of life experiences as possible. I'm not saying that I'll be gone forever, we are no longer sensei and student, but we will forever be friends as we share the same burden Naruto. Every time you are in need to either talk or train, you can always come to me, okay? Explained Tonbo, thus managing to control Naruto's tears as the blonde displayed a smile in appraisal. Now Naruto, seeing as this is our last day as sensei and student, how about we go for one of our travels throughout the village's buildings? You always said that it was like your own playground, isn't it? Smiled Tonbo as he saw the blonde's happy expression. Suddenly, both student and teacher began running with speed towards the compound's highest structure, before jumping straight at the wall and using chakra to climb to the roof. Instantly, Naruto activated the technique and he saw the vicinity and a near building to his northeast, before he did a barrel roll towards it, thus landing perfectly before continuing to run towards the next set of buildings. Quickly focusing chakra to his feet, Naruto jumped high into the air passing two buildings, before seeing a pipe that would go all the way down to the ground as he climbed onto it and sliding all the way down as he somersaulted to the air using his hands to grab a pole before flipping a couple times and then throwing himself in the air once more towards the next set of building, before landing on one. He looked at Tonbo and then began to display a genuine smile. Another hobby he had was to treat Konoha like his own playground, jumping through rooftops, sliding through pipes and using poles to somersault to the air. He first learned about this after learning the tree exercise and both Kato and Tonbo had to chase him all over Konoha only to catch him on top of a building with a face that stopped any of them from berating Naruto for what he did. Grow strong Naruto. I'll enjoy seeing the shocked look of everyone upon seeing what you'll be able to accomplish in the future, said Tonbo, earning a nod from Naruto as he suddenly engulfed Tonbo in a hug. Thank you so much Tonbo-sensei. I'm forever grateful, smiled Naruto, which earned one from Tonbo as well. At the Sarutobi compound . After arriving from work, Hiruzen turned to his relaxing chair for comfort while smoking his pipe. He had to smile at the memory of enlisting Naruto at the academy next year. He also made sure to send some of the school material to be written in Braille so that Naruto can fully grasp everything taught at the academy. What feared him, though, was the Chunin teacher responsible for Naruto's education. Yumino Iruka has just acquired his authorization to work at the academy and Naruto's class will be his first one. The problem was because of the fact that Naruto harbored the very reason why Iruka's parents were killed and the Hokage feared that his hatred would not succumb to his desire to teach. Perhaps a previous conversation was in order just to settle a few things. Hiruzen wasn't planning to convince Iruka to let go of his hatred towards the Kyuubi, but rather tell him to treat Naruto just like any other student. Focusing on other aspects, Hiruzen remembered that this next crop of academy students happened to be the one with offspring of all the major clans of Konoha: Yamanaka, Nara, Hyuga, Uchiha, Akamichi, Inuzuka, Aburame and now Sarutobi as well would have their respective representatives at the academy. Also, the Hokage had high hopes for this new crop because of what the respective fathers and mothers were able to do for Konoha. He knew from the Nara clan that Shikamaru was showing signs of inheriting his father's brains, but also his father's lack of enthusiasm, which earned a chuckle from Hiruzen. Others like Yamanaka Ino, Aburame Shino, Inuzuka Kiba, Hyuga Hinata and Akamichi Choji displayed the very intention of following their respective fathers' footsteps and no doubt will continue the respective clans' tradition, thus protecting the village possibly better than their fathers. Now, Naruto will join this group of gifted individuals who in time will grow to become the next guardians of this village. Also Uchiha Sasuke, Fugaku's second son would join as well this year and if he follows the same path of his brother then another prodigy would join the village ranks soon. Speaking of the Uchiha clan, Hiruzen couldn't help but fear that something would happen inside those walls. The Anbu couldn't discover much about any possible ill intentions regarding the village, but the Hokage figured it was just a matter of time if his instinct doesn't fail on him and so far, it never did. Suddenly hearing footsteps coming from the stairs, Hiruzen saw his lovely daughter. She was rubbing her belly as in a motherly desire to protect her soon-to-be second son. Hello father. I see you're quite happy today. What happened if I may know? Asked Makoto as she seated on the couch in front of her father's chair. Oh, my lovely daughter, the reason is because I just enrolled Naruto-kun at the academy next year. He will be able to socialize with other kids his age and if possible even befriend one or two, said Hiruzen, earning a nod from Makoto. That's wonderful news Otusan. You know since Kato-kun told me about it, I was having some doubts, but that was because of his disability to see before. Now, though, with Tonbo's help, Naruto-kun managed to overcome the blindness. I only hope no one bullies him because of it, you know. Kids can be very mean when they want to be. What about the teacher? Is he okay with our Naruto? Asked Makoto, also aware of the fact that her eldest son is not exactly liked by the generation population because of what he carries inside of him. Yumino Iruka is a skilled ninja and I have no doubt he is a skilled teacher. I just have to talk to him about Naruto, seeing as what happened to Iruka's parents because of the fox. Don't worry, though, my dear Makoto, Naruto will be in safe hands, that I promise, said Hiruzen, earning a nod from Makoto, who in turn offered her father a cup of tea, since she was about to make some. Then, once more, Hiruzen was alone in the living room, but not long before he saw the bundle of joy that is his grandson literally sliding down of the stair rail, before landing right next to the Hokage. Wow, where's the fire Naruto-kun? Sometimes, I even forget that you can't use your eyes. I can see Tonbo's technique did wonders huh? Smiled Hiruzen, to which Naruto nodded, even though the boy wasn't exactly facing others while talking yet like Tonbo does, probably because no one ever told him to do so, but in time, he would learn. Well, Ji-chan, I kind of overheard your conversation about the academy thing I'm going to next year and I'm really excited. Just you wait. I'll be the best ninja ever and prove to everyone that just because I'm blind that does not mean I can't become a ninja, said Naruto, before seeing with the technique that his grandfather was smiling and nodding his head as in concurring with his assessment. After 2 years of training with the Chakra no Myaku technique, activating it was almost like second nature to the blonde, to the point where he would use it pretty much all the time, well except when he was reading, seeing as the technique couldn't read kanji, but other than that, Naruto no longer needed to worry about it. Suddenly, a new person entered Naruto's field of sight and he turned to greet his lovely and beautiful mother with a captivating smile that would send any woman to madness in how cute he was, even though his lifeless green eyes were still visible. Naruto-kun, go wash your hands because dinner will soon be ready, said Makoto, before seeing Naruto nod and walk towards the bathroom to wash up. Dinner was uneventful with the exception of Naruto displaying his uncontrollable enthusiasm, before receiving congratulation words coming from both his parents and uncle as well as sharing some stories about their time at the academy. Naruto had a good time, especially when he heard his uncle Asuma recall an event when he used to chase a now senior chunin called Kurenai and she would just blow him off all the time. After dinner, everyone went to their respected rooms to rest for the night, leaving Kato, Hiruzen and Asuma alone in the living room to discuss some issues. Otusan, are you sure it's wise to send Naruto-kun to the academy unsupervised? As I recall, the Chunin teachers are young enough to show resentment towards Naruto for that event in particular, asked Asuma, before seeing Asai escape the elder Hokage's features. He appreciated his son for not openly say the name Kyuubi inside the house, since he fairly knew that because of the blonde's hearing ability, he could hear everything. I understand Asuma-kun and I've taken into consideration the fact that the teachers still resent him for what happened. However, Naruto chose to become a ninja of Konoha and as such, he'll have to learn how to work with a team under a Junin sensei in the future, so it's important that he develops at least a decent level of social skills. Who knows, maybe he can find a group of friends that enjoy spending time with him. After all, until now Naruto had zero contact with people his age, explained Hiruzen, earning a nod from Asuma, before he continued. Nevertheless, your concern is duly noted Asuma-kun, as I happen to share it with you. Tomorrow I'll have a conversation with one of the teachers. The next day After waking up, Iruka went to the bathroom with a smile from ear to ear. His dream was to become a teacher at the academy, since he even became a genin and got selected by the Hokage to help him with the mission documentation. The feeling of being the one responsible to train each generation of shinobi was really appealing, and he just couldn't wait to begin. Especially next year, when children from the most respectable and honored clans of Konoha will attend, and the scarred Chunin could already envision them in the future, growing up to surpass their respective father and mothers who became legends in their own right. Suddenly, a knock was heard at the door, and he opened only to reveal an Anbu telling him to meet the Hokage in his office in half an hour. After accepting the message, Haruka closed the door and once again smiled in anticipation of what the Hokage wanted to discuss with him, probably some guidelines and special orientations for each respective clan member that would attend the academy next year. In a couple of minutes, Haruka was already zipping up his vest and leaving his rather small but cozy apartment towards the Hokage's office, where he would be officially appointed as next year's Chunin teacher at the academy. The man was so eager to hear what the Hokage wanted to say that he quickly jumped through buildings, thus arriving at the Hokage's office in little over 2 minutes, before knocking on the door. After receiving the authorization to enter, Haruka smiled and opened the door. "Good morning, Hokage-sama. You wished to see me?" asked Haruka after making only his head visible for the cage. "Oh, Haruka-kun. Please enter and make yourself comfortable. I wanted to, first, congratulate you regarding the teacher's position. I know it's been your dream to fill this role for the village, and I can see from your smile that you're rather enthused," smiled Hiruzen, earning a nod from Haruka. "I appreciate it, Hokage-sama. Indeed, it's been a dream of mine in order to teach this new generation and the future ones as well. May I ask, Hokage-sama, who was nominated for this year along with me?" asked Haruka, before seeing as the Hokage grabbed a gray book. "Well, your old teammate Tuji Mizuki was as well, but he's in a long-term mission for the moment, so he'll join you 6 months from now. Until then, Funino Daikoku will be his substitute," answered the Hokage, earning a nod from Haruka. In case you don't know who Daikoku is, he was the academy instructor to whom Uchiha Fugaku talked to on Sasuke's first day at the academy. "Okay then, Hokage-sama, do you wish to discuss another matter or?" asked Haruka, but stopped once he saw that the Hokage was about to speak. "Yes, there is still one matter of utmost importance, and I'm afraid it cannot hold, Haruka-kun," said Hiruzen as Haruka nodded, meanwhile somewhat worried about the sudden serious visage of the normally kind Hokage. Time skip. First day at the academy . After the alarm alerted him to the time, Naruto literally flipped off from his bed and landed safely on the floor. He went to do his normal routine, which by the way didn't even require the technique usage since he was already accustomed to the whole procedure. Nevertheless, unlike every routine, Naruto went through everything with a broad smile on his face. What caused him to smile was that today was to be his first day at the academy, and he would have the opportunity to meet people his age. Indeed, growing up with his family was wonderful, and he thanked the heavens that they took care of him and gave him comfort, but the blonde found that he lacked in any social interaction with those of his age. That was why almost an hour and a half before the academy was to start, Naruto was already pestering his mother for his breakfast. Makoto, though, smiled at the blonde's enthusiasm and made an omelette a la Naruto with 2 eggs, ham, tomato and some cheese, accompanied by some warm milk and some orange juice. In little over 10 minutes, Naruto ingested everything and left the house, but not after taking his lunch from his mother, of course. Because of the early schedule, Konoha was pretty much empty save for the shopkeepers who were looking at the clocks to open their business and a couple of people who just enjoyed waking up early. Immediately jumping towards the next set of building, Naruto activated his technique and immediately scanned images were being transmitted by chakra as he performed some acrobatic movements on top of the buildings, rails, pipes, wherever he felt like, because Konoha was just a big playground to the kid. He didn't take long to arrive at the academy building before entering and looking to his left to see a paper with what appeared to be kanji written. Frowning in frustration, Naruto grabbed his backpack that contained his braille-written books and a separate sheet of paper that contained instructions for him to follow towards his class's location. After 2 sets of stairs and a couple of doors to the right, he stopped in front of the third, before opening the door. The room was empty as expected since the blonde arrived an hour early. Noticing that he could pick any of the desks available, he decided to pick the one on the second row, being the second desk on the right side. After seating, he placed his material on top of the desk and patiently waited for either the teacher of another student. Suddenly, The door opened and a person with a Chunin vest entered, before heading straight for the board to write something. Although Naruto couldn't read with his technique, Tonbo and Makoto managed to teach him how to use together his advanced hearing and his seeing technique in order to know what the teacher was writing. The advanced hearing served to hear the sound the chalk makes, and the seeing technique was to follow the teacher's hand, hence how Naruto understood the man's name. Yumi no Iruka. The sound of Naruto's grin alerted Iruka of his presence, and the teacher turned to avert his gaze at the sudden and strangely quiet presence. However, it didn't take him more than 1 second to change from a cheerful expression to that of a man trying his best to remain neutral, but failing miserably. Instantly, memories of his conversation with the Hokage appeared. Flashback on. Iruka-kun. Next year the majority of the clans will be sending their offspring to attend the academy, so you understand this class importance? Asked Sarutobi, before Iruka nodded and the old man continued. Well, my grandson will also be attending next year and he's the major reason of me calling you here, Iruka. His name is Sarutobi Naruto, and by your shocked face, I can see you already know who he is, said Sarutobi, before seeing the once surprised look turn into one of pure hatred, similar to those shown by the general population. Iruka, I understand you hold resentment to what happened to your parents because of the fox, and normally, I would focus my strength in convincing of the fact that Naruto and the Kyuubi are different beings, although they share the same body, but I won't. Please bear in mind that this is not only an order from the Hokage but also a request from an old friend. You were appointed for the job as teacher at the academy and you're supposed to treat each student equally. Then treat Naruto just like any one of the students you have under your charge, said Hiruzen, before seeing Iruka frowning his features at such a request. With all due respect, Hokage-sama, that fox killed my family and left me to grow up alone. I just can't look at your grandson and forget that he harbors the very creature responsible for my misery, said Iruka, before seeing a sigh escape Sarutobi's lips. I see. Like I said, I won't force you to acknowledge that Naruto is not the Kyuubi and vice versa. However, taken into account your answer, I'm afraid I'll have to issue an order to you, Iruka-kun, not to treat Naruto any different than you treat the other students, ordered Hiruzen, earning a nod in understanding from the scarred Chunin, before he got up and left the room, but not after requesting for dismissal by the Hokage, which was granted. Flashback off. Just by looking at him brought back the pain he felt throughout his life growing up. Iruka didn't even take into consideration, though, that his eyes betrayed every bit of neutral treatment. And so, he was quite surprised when the blonde spoke. I can see that your eyes are similar to everyone in the village, said Naruto while looking down while questioning why the hell do people look at him like that. Iruka, though, was taken by surprise at how his emotions betrayed both his profession as a shinobi and a direct order by the Hokage. Excuse me, why do you say that? Asked Iruka. That old look of hatred I've seen people giving me for the past 2 years of my life. Every time I go out on the street, I see those eyes filled with negative emotions like hatred and malice, and I can very well feel it's directed at me. They don't even pretend to disguise it, and you don't as well, said Naruto as he continued to look down in clear sadness. Iruka to his part looked intently and noticed the Kyuubi Cantainer's eyes. They were green eyes and devoted of that usual innocence every child possess. Immediately, Iruka was somewhat filled with a sad feeling. Even though the scarred Chunin still harbored unconditional level of hatred over the Kyuubi, he couldn't help but feel rather unnerved by those lifeless eyes. The scarred Chunin was surprised when the bell rang and the rest of the students barged in the classroom, before seeing some of them pick up seats. He turned and went to his table, but Naruto's eyes will be forever kept in his mind as a reminder of the possible fact that an innocent infant was drawn on this mess without so much as having a choice in the matter. 2 years had passed ever since Naruto's first day at the academy, and things were heading for a much darker course than anyone who knew the blonde could have anticipated. Sure, it was a fear everyone shared when Naruto first learned how to see using chakra, but his family couldn't anticipate the level of hatred displayed by the villagers directly at the once blonde bundle of joy. His teacher Yumi no Iruka settled down somewhat and managed to treat Naruto just like any other less important student among the classroom, even though the blonde's grades placed him on the clan heir's level. However, the rest of the village would just look at him with death glares, filled with hatred that even Makoto had the urge to run away from fear of her life being taken just by standing next to Naruto. At that specific date, October 10th, mother and son went to the market near the Sarutobi compound to purchase some milk and baby food for little Konohamaru, who was born a year ago. Makoto, at the time, figured that the date itself was the cause for people's hatred, but after consulting with her father, she was proven wrong. It was every day, when she would pick Naruto at school sometimes to surprise him, she could very well see the parents glaring daggers at the boy, more like glaring at what the boy housed inside him, without his knowledge. Everywhere he went, people would look at him the same way, and it was starting to affect Naruto's personality. Whereas before he couldn't wait to go outside and travel throughout the big village, now he was dreading it every day. The technique Chakra no Myaku was, at first, a gift from the heavens. Now, though, Naruto wished he'd never learned this damn technique. Everywhere he went, he could sense the people's feelings towards him, and all of them were pretty much the same feeling of loathing, and even a few with enough killing intent that would send a child his age to run for dear life. Speaking of killing intents, and since the boy wasn't restricted inside the Sarutobi manor anymore, he was wide open for attacks and no one was there to protect him. However, they were soon stopped by a lone Anbu member with a weasel mask that always protected Naruto, no matter what happened. One time, though, the Anbu wasn't there and Naruto was all by himself returning from the academy at night. He was a few kilometers away from his house when it happened. Four shinobis, at least what the boy could see from the Konoha headbands on their foreheads, came and brutally attacked his body with kicks, punches and even low-level Kaden jutsus that meant to severely burn his limbs. Naruto was only found the next day by his surrogate father, who was looking for the blonde non-stop since the day before. For those who were wondering about where Itachi was this time, try remembering a little about what happened in canon and you'll figure out. Since the attack happened, the blonde created a distance from his family, meaning the only ones who, according to the boy, still loved him. He would on occasions hide up in a tree on the back of the Sarutobi compound from fear of seeing those looks once more. He couldn't understand, though, why this was happening, why everyone loathed him like some sort of pariah. Why people would even go as far as hurt him for it. All these questions plagued in his mind, and he even voiced it to his grandfather, but once more Hiruzen tried to dissuade the question. However, whereas before Naruto would change thoughts quickly like any kid would, now his heart ached from being left in the dark regarding this specific manner. Today he was supposed to go to the academy in about half an hour, but because of everything that happened, the blonde was afraid of leaving the secure household and show his face outside. Inside the house and looking with saddened eyes, Makoto couldn't believe this was happening with her little Naruto. To think that someone as happy and energetic as her son could become like this was unnerving to the beautiful woman, and she once demanded some answers from her father, only to receive the same answer that the old man believed that Konoha would change once they saw the real Naruto. However, in spite the old man's good heart, and in Asuma's opinion, foolish, the little boy's personality was slowly drifting, and all of this was because of those ignorant fools who couldn't see past the damn fox even after 9 years. She, then, felt a heavy hand on her shoulders, before she turned and saw her husband's solemn face staring at the tree where he knew little Naruto would be hiding. "Oh Kato-kun, what can we do? If this keeps going, I fear for my boy's life. No boy his age should deal with the burden of an entire village. I fear that he will snap in time and be devoted of that smile that seemed to brighten the entire room," whispered Makoto as she landed her face on her husband's chest and started crying uncontrollably. Kato quickly embraced his wife into a comforting hug and began massaging her hair while whispering some comforting words. "I share your fear, Makoto-chan. I really do. He is only 9. The amount of people looking at him is enough to make even me uncomfortable. I fear that by the end of the academy, if not sooner, our boy's mind won't be able to cope with such hatred," said Kato, earning a nod from the woman, who, then, left the embrace and wiped off some of the tears that started falling from her eyes. She was afraid of this also, that it would be much for him to handle, and his mind and heart becomes shut for any outside experience that could harm, as a sort of body defense mechanism. Back to Naruto, his technique allowed him scenes of his parents talking. He could feel what they felt, though. Both of them were presenting fear, but for what? Were they just like the others who looked at him? No, the blonde hit himself in the head, not allowing for this particular thought to wander any forward. They are his family, they are the only ones that don't look at him as if he was some sort of monster, and no matter what happened, Naruto smiled upon knowing that he could always depend on his family for guidance. Gaining a sudden confidence, Naruto got out of the tree and grabbed his bag before leaving the house with conviction written on his face. The blonde, then, proceeded through the same path he always did in order to avoid the onlookers on the streets. He would jump through rooftops, focusing more on chakra control so as not to utter a single sound, thus travel without anyone noticing him. The blonde even went as much as conceal it, since a couple of shinobis were heading his way and the boy wouldn't even allow people to catch him unguarded, not anymore. As the blonde watched the shinobis leaving, he was wondering about the future that leads before him. He was still unaware of why people treated him the way they did, but one thing he was certain about. He wouldn't let anyone step on him anymore. He didn't do anything to deserve according to his recollection, so no one has the right to treat him like this. From now on, the blonde would expand his chakra senses in order to never get caught by surprise. Just minutes before Naruto was caught at the time, he managed to feel their chakra capacity and concluded it to be nowhere near either his father or his sensei, so they couldn't be stronger than a genin-level ninja. He wasn't sure if he could beat any of them, but he could damn well escape them by using his agility and his ability in traveling throughout the village's hidden places to arrive at his house. A few minutes later, Naruto was already in front of the academy where his senses spotted a great number of students roaming around, talking with one another. As he slowly walked towards the entrance, his sensitive ears caught some whispers. "There he goes again. Father told me to stay away from him. He's a bad influence, and you should too. Yeah, my mother told me about the atrocious acts of the Q. Shish, we can't talk about it, remember? He sure is unnerving, and those eyes just creeps the hell out of me." The boy remained neutral this time, but he could hear everything. One word, though, kept playing in his mind. Q. That name was familiar. Naruto remembered. He was searching his mind for anything he learned in history lessons that began with these syllables. Suddenly, though, the name appeared on his mind. Kyuubi no Yoko, he remembered, was the demon fox that terrorized the village 9 years ago and was defeated by the Yondaime Hokage at the cost of his life. But why would those girls talk about the Kyuubi when looking at him? This was the key question, and the boy was now on the lead here. He could feel it, he was getting closer to the truth, and now he wouldn't rest until the secret that everyone kept from him was revealed. Once inside the classroom, he looked at those that already arrived. As usual, the Nara clan heir was sleeping on his desk and the Akamichi heir was eating the usual bag of chips. The sound of barking came to him as well as the image of Kiba playing with his dog, generated by chakra. The usual bickering both Yamanaka Ino and Haruno Sakura for the Uchiha was a common occurrence in classroom, hence why Naruto chose the place where no one would bother him, next to a sleeping Shikamaru. The blonde was already accustomed to having no friends whatsoever. None of his classmates wanted to socialize with him, even going as much as verbalizing the same talk, that their respective parents told them not to be around him. Naruto took it hard the first time, since he wanted nothing more than to socialize with children his age. However, after a while, he got used to it and remained quiet the entire class, just focusing on the teacher's lectures and practice exercises. Shikamaru as well as Aburame Shino were the only two who, different from the others, just didn't do anything to him. When the teachers entered, Naruto managed to visualize Yumino Uruka entering the classroom, followed by Naruto's most loathed individual, Tsuji Mizuki. If Naruto could point out the one person he actually hated, it was this man. The hateful glares he could take and was already used to, but having to dispel a great number of genjutsu on his tests was just plain ridiculous. One of the advantages of Naruto's technique was that he could see both the illusion image and the real one, so he didn't have much trouble in dispelling. Nonetheless, the man did everything he could think of to make the blonde fail at the academy. Even in practice exercises, he would use advanced taijutsu katas against Naruto so that he would fail. However, the Surukan allowed some improvised moves, hence why Naruto always managed to dodge Mizuki's attacks, much to the man's chagrin. As the class settled down, each of them received from Mizuki the final test of the year, which was obligatory for advancing to the next year. And as usual, Naruto got a much harder test than the others. Questions like shuriken trajectory, history questions about subjects he was still due to learn next year. And just like every time, Naruto would raise his hand and ask for a different test since he got the wrong test. Uruka, Then, came and checked the questions with a scowl on his face. This was starting to become annoying, the teacher thought. For some reason, Naruto always got a different test than the others, and, strangely enough, he always saw Mizuki with a not so pleased look. Sorry, Naruto. Here is the right one, said Iruka, as he placed the real exam for the blonde to read. The Hokage's office. Smoking patiently his pipe, Sarutobi Hiruzen was considering the last couple of months and the tragic event of the Uchiha massacre. The man couldn't help but frown in dismay from not figuring this out earlier. The Anbu mission investigation came up with nothing that could imply what happened. Now, because of the act of one of his best Anbu members, the entire clan was vanished, save for little Uchiha Sasuke. Just remembering how much the Sharingan helped to protect the village all those years was enough to make Sarutobi nervous. He never enjoyed depending too much on bloodlines, but no one could question the Dujutsu's efficiency in battle. Now, though, the most powerful ninja in Konoha would have to adapt his forces without taking the Dujutsu into consideration. No problem, though, he reasoned. The shock of those lost was way more important than Sarutobi's little predicament right now. Putting that thought aside for the moment, he picked his all-seeing ball and focused chakra on it. Suddenly, the image of his surrogate grandson appeared taking the academy test. He could see the blonde passing his finger through the braille text, before answering the respective question with ease. Sarutobi had the urge to smile since Naruto loved reading since he was a little kid and the village history was his favorite subject. With Naruto . After a while, Naruto got up and handled the test for Iruka. He needed to give to Mizuki, but instead, he gave it to Iruka. He, then, left the academy and went straight to his house where he would find his history book written on braille. Once more, he jumped towards the next rooftop and proceeded this way towards his household. Occasionally, he would hide behind one large tower upon sensing two high-level chakra shinobis passing nearby. Afterwards, he continued his trip towards his home, before running up to his room and closing the door. He thanked someone up there because the house was empty, before he took the book and started reading. He, in short time, found the passage about the Kyuubi and started reading with enough attention in order to avoid passing through some vital information. He passed through the fox's description and who was responsible for the fox's defeat, since he wouldn't find anything here. As he passed the fingers through the braille text, the blonde suddenly stopped once he got information regarding the date of the fox's defeat. October 10th. It was the same date that he was born and the same date that he would have to double his chakra sensory ability because of so much people openly glaring at him. What sort of connection does he possess with the Kyuubi no Yoko and why he was born the exact time of the fox's defeat? As more Naruto read about it, more questions came to his mind. People, often, would call him demon, but he couldn't be it. Could he? He didn't recall doing anything of what he heard through whispers, and certainly, the boy wouldn't be able to level the entire village. He kept wondering about it the whole day, and it was now night time inside the Sarutobi compound. Everyone knew Naruto was in his room, but they decided to give the boy some time to cope with his everyday life. Suddenly, his door opened and the boy left the room. He needed to cry. He wanted to cry, but he knew his eyes were devoid of tears. He wanted to shout to everyone about what he concluded, but he maintained steady as he approached his grandfather. Jichin, said Naruto with a sad voice that alerted everyone's attention, until he finally let it out. Am I a demon? Asked the boy, before he sensed everyone's feelings of surprise and shock, meaning it was the truth. Naruto-kun, why are you asking this sort of thing? You're nothing different from any of us and you're certainly not a demon, you hear me? Asked Sarutobi, and Naruto could detect a certain level of insecurity on his grandfather's voice. Everywhere I go, people stare at me like they want to kill me, and even this one time, I would have if father didn't come and saved me. When I go to school, one girl started whispering the name Q. But was stopped by another girl who said it was forbidden to talk about it, explained Naruto, while Hiruzen's eyes were widening each minute and his heart was slowly increasing its beat, showing the boy that he was getting somewhat closer to the ugly truth. I came home and started reading about the fox, only to find out that it was dead the day I was born. I can't help but link all this information. Jichin. Am I really the fox demon that attacked the village 9 years ago? Asked Naruto, before waiting for an answer from his grandfather. The entire room went silent and everyone was staring at Hiruzen to figure out what to say to the blonde. Hiruzen was picturing every possible scenario in his head. Telling the blonde the truth about the Kyuubi and risk everything, or keep the information from the blonde until he has the right age. Keeping the information was perhaps the wiser choice, but this way, Naruto would connect the dots and think he is the demon, instead of just being its jailer. The old man sighed in defeat and looked at the blonde in front of him with a decision made. He would know the truth about the Kyuubi. At least he considered the boy adapt to learn the truth of what happened 9 years ago. He was hoping, though, that the blonde wouldn't connect the dots too much and ask why he was chosen to bear the Kyuubi's burden, because, then, another secret would have to be told, and that one Sarutobi knew no kid was prepared for. Hiruzen took a moment to breathe in preparation for the boy's reaction and looked at him. He explained to Naruto what really happened 9 years ago and how the fox ended up being sealed inside his body. As he explained what transpired, the boy was slowly processing the idea into his mind. He heard how the fox was responsible for his losing his sight at birth and why everyone glared at him with angry looks, but the weirdest thing, according to the other individuals in the room, was that Naruto, not once, flinched or shouted during the whole explanation, and the fact that his eyes never changed, it made impossible for anyone to gauge his feelings. However, Naruto was shocked. He just didn't let it show much. Sure, it was better than being a demon, but he was in no way prepared to hear that he's the jailer that kept the fox at bay. That information alone took a while to sink in the blonde's brain, because of everything he perceived from the streets. People glaring at him, sending him hateful glares, and even some curse words about him being a demon. If what his grandfather told him is true, then why do people still treat him as if he was the demon reincarnated? The silence in the room was deafening and everyone was waiting for the blonde to manifest, to say something to express his frustration regarding the shocking news. Jichin, if what you said is true, then why do people look at me as if I were the Kyuubi no Yoko? Don't they know the truth of what happened? Asked Naruto. Before his advanced hearing felt the old man sighing in dismay. His heart wasn't increasing its pace any longer and was now somewhat steady. One thing you have to understand, Naruto-kun, is that the Kyuubi no Yoko was responsible for many deaths in Konoha. Husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, children, cousins, almost everyone that were alive when the fox appeared, lost their loved ones because of the attack. The pain of sorrow is easily substituted by a need of revenge, and since you're the one that housed the very thing responsible for their misery, explained Hiruzen in hopes of the blonde understanding the full extent of the village population's suffering. I know that you may not understand this fully, Naruto-kun, from being so young and just now knowing about the truth. Naruto then lifted his head as if to stare at the Hokage's face directly. His eyes told the Hokage nothing, and the man couldn't figure out if Naruto was angry or sad at what Hiruzen was explaining to him. Then, to the surprise of everyone in the room, the blonde gave an answer that none of them ever expected hearing from him. I don't understand their pain because I never lost anyone precious in my life. However, even though respecting their decision to hate me, I can't just play ignorant about this and just let people treat me or judge me the way they want to, just because the damn fox is inside me. From what you told me, for them is easier to vent their frustrations on me instead of dealing with their pain of loss, so the next time someone decides to attack me, I'll fight back, no questions asked, snarled Naruto, before giving his back to the shocked Hokage. The entire room fell into silence as the blonde marched upstairs, flaring his chakra everywhere. If what Naruto said shocked everyone, what happened next pretty much took all the breath in their lungs. A sudden dark aura began to envelop the blonde like it was a protective barrier, preventing any bad influence from reaching Naruto. To the inexperienced eyes, this revelation caused surprise and question on their faces, but to someone who survived 2 great ninja wars, trained 3 of the most powerful shinobi in the world, the Sannin, and is now, for the second time, Hokage of Konohagakure, Sarutobi, Hiruzen's face was white instantly. He was out of breath and unable to process what he just saw. He recalled rather vividly the last time he saw something like this, and it was even before the first great ninja war. It was such a terrifying feeling that engulfed him at the time. In the end, his genin team would have been killed had his sensei, the late Nadaime Hokage, not dealt with the last barrier of this lost skill. The old man saw Makoto trying desperately to console her son about this, but Kato stopped her, saying that this was something Naruto needed to handle alone. Asuma, though, focused on his father's shocked face and he knew, instantly, that something was very wrong here. Otusan, what happened? What was that black aura surrounding Naruto? Asked Asuma, almost not wanting to know the answer if it enabled a seasoned Hokage to pale in sudden shock. Hiruzen, for instance, looked at his son and turned to explain about the horrible fact that just occurred. What I'm about to tell you, my son, will be shocking, but it needs to be said, so that we can deal with it in the future. With the exception of Makoto-chan here, everyone knows that every shinobi or kunoichi has a particular element affinity, it being either fire, water, wind, earth or lightning, explained Hiruzen, entering into professor mode. The ninjas in the room nodded their heads since this was pretty much common knowledge by now. However, we are still due to uncover 100% of what chakra is able to do. Before the First Great War, my sensei the Nadaime Hokage managed to defeat an enemy who was able to use Maiden, Dark Release ninjutsu. It took every bit of sensei's strength with Suiten jutsus to overcome this man's strength. Maiden. I never heard of such a thing, and why are you mentioning this now? Asked Asuma, right now fearing whatever the old man's reasons are. I'm not surprised, since the last one died by the Nadaime's hands. Outside the 5 usual affinities, there are 2 other affinities that are yet to establish their domain in our world. Light and Dark Chakra, Haiden Light Release, and Maiden Dark Release, Yin and Yang. As anyone might have already guessed, one appears when the person is pure of heart, and no matter what lies ahead, the heart remains pure, that's Light Chakra. On the other hand, the dark side appears with negative thoughts and feelings. I'm afraid that our Naruto-kun managed to use this ability, explained Hiruzen with a heavy heart. Makoto, just by the mention of the word dark side, fell on the ground suffering the pain her son must be facing right now. Asuma, though, wanted to know more about his nephew. What are the repercussions of using dark chakra and why were you shocked? Asked Asuma, earning a sigh from Hiruzen. Now it's up to Naruto, I'm afraid. He could either use this ability to help people or to harm them. Our problem relies on the fact that the dark chakra's power increased once the user is either angry or feeling negative emotions. The man the Nadaime fought wasn't a bad person, but he was able to control his anger enough to get more power of his attacks. It will depend on the boy's mind how to use this new power. I just hope darkness doesn't consume him entirely, concluded Sarutobi with the thought that he was getting too old for this shit. With Naruto . A while after lying on his bed, Naruto succumbed to sleeping instantly. He raced his mind about the ugly truth of what's trapped inside him and began to think about the reason behind the population's hatred towards him. His grandfather did explain about it, but Naruto just couldn't see why after 9 years, people still wanted him dead. He closed his eyes and let his body rest for a while. However, in little time, he opened his eyes inside a different environment. He was in a narrow corridor with water up to his knees. Looking up, all he could see were pipes going through multiple directions. Then it occurred to him that he wasn't using chakra and yet he was able to see perfectly. He immediately figured it was some sort of dream, but he started walking nonetheless. Making turns, walking some more and then turning once more to the left. His legs were pretty much taking him without his consent on the matter. It was like he didn't need to think the right way to go to. Suddenly, he entered a huge room, this time the water level decreased to his feet. He looked forward to see what appeared to be a prison with a white note strapped in its center. Where the hell am I? Naruto thought as he approached the cage and passed his hand over the seal and the bars. Suddenly, though, his instincts told him to jump just as 3 steel claws appeared out of nowhere, aiming straight for his guts. The boy then looked up to see some frightening pair of blood-red eyes looking at him as if he was this creature's next prey. A strong and fearful laughter echoed throughout the room and the face of the infamous Kyuubi no Yoko appeared fully, still laughing. Naruto recognized the beast immediately from the book description. He flinched upon staring at the creature's awful presence and wondered how the Yondaime managed to deal with this vision of hell. At last my jailer comes to visit me. I was waiting when you'd figure out the truth about why those pitiful apes look at you with such disdain and blind hatred, laughed Kyuubi, while seeing the boy suddenly frown at the fox just for it being there. By now, Naruto was getting accustomed to the fox's presence. However, the thought of being in a dream still crossed his mind, but Kyubi just laughed and explained that this was the boy's subconscious mind. Just looking at your picture was enough to be afraid of you. I'm just having a hard time looking at you directly. Another thing that bothers me is how can I see without the usage of chakra, since you're the one responsible for me losing my sight? Asked Naruto, before hearing a snort from the fox, more like displaying that he doesn't care one bit. As I said, here is your subconscious mind, so senses like vision don't apply here. Your mind arranges everything. Now Ninjin, I want to discuss with you about your new set of skills. It's been a long time since one of your kind managed to awaken dark chakra, and I must say I'm impressed. Even a babbling idiot like you were before managed to be so corrupted to the dark side. I believe a thank you to the villagers is in order, laughed Kyubi once more, but the blonde looked at him with confusion, as expected. When you displayed negative thoughts for others' sufferings, you managed to awake the dark chakra that is actually stored in every one of you pitiful apes. Dark and light chakra are pure manifestations of one's personality. Rarely one of them even manifests the light chakra being when the human is pure of heart, and dark chakra is, well, the quite opposite. Just by feeling your chakra now, gives me so much pleasure, explained the fox, but Naruto was still left in the dark. What are you talking about? All I said was that I wouldn't stay ignorant and stop being everyone's punching bag, that's all. Are you saying I'm an evil person? But I didn't do anything in that sort, shouted Naruto, while trying to cope with this new information. Regardless of what you did or didn't do, pitiful ape, you now bear the strength of darkness. It will be up to you to use it, though. Unfortunately, you could very well use this power for good, if you learn how to control your emotions. Fortunately for you, I have 2 Maiden, dark release, jutsus that aren't too difficult to learn and that you'll be able to use. They are in this scroll in front of you, together with how to use dark chakra to perform both ninjutsu and genjutsu. Now, get out of my sight and let me sleep, shouted Kyubi, before Naruto was long gone from his subconscious mind. Instantly, he was on the outside world once more as his blindness returned full force. The house was silent, meaning it wasn't daylight yet. Also looking with chakra at the watch stored next to his bed, it was still 2 hours left for the moon to leave and the sun to fill its place. The blonde found it weird that the information of the scroll was pretty much implanted in his mind. The knowledge on how to use dark chakra and the seals needed for 2 low-level techniques. The information about the techniques still eluded the blonde, as well as the fact that he still didn't comprehend the fact that he has access to dark chakra. His words echoed inside his mind regarding what he said to his grandfather. They were all true, and if necessary, he would say again. Sure, the blonde understood everyone is entitled to their misery, but that doesn't mean he should take a beating and don't lift a finger to at least protect himself. He was out in the middle of the night processing every bit of information that was now stored in his mind, regarding the usage of black chakra. Readily closing his eyes, the boy focused on manifesting his chakra, before to his surprise, a sudden dark substance began surrounding his body, most like a cloak that would protect him from his enemies. After, he remembered the 4-hand seal sequence needed to learn the first darkness jutsu on his arsenal called Maiden Kuro Senbon, Dark Release. Dark Senbon Jutsu, and the theory behind it all was to mold the already existing chakra surrounding the blonde into a great number of needles. Going through the hand seal sequence, nay, rat, usagi, rabbit, inu, dog, tora, tiger, the blonde could feel his chakra being molded, before his chakra-like vision began to see a lot of needles being formed in front of him, before he smiled in appreciation. With just a flare of his chakra, the needles were shot with great speed towards the incoming tree, before he saw all of them embedded at the tree. The boy, despite knowing about the source of this power, couldn't help but smile at his first jutsu. According to the damn fox, it would be up to him how he'd use Maiden 4, but Naruto couldn't make any conclusions out of this. Dark chakra is a result of a huge array of negative emotions, but the blonde, while never the same smiling face anymore, didn't feel like destroying everything and everyone just because people use him as the punching bag. Well, the answer wouldn't come to him right now, but at least he felt he could use these 2 new jutsus in order to defend himself against those who try to hurt him. Plus, the boy was improving his family taijutsu style, the Suruken. Without more wonderings, the blonde now moved to his other jutsu, but the name itself made him wonder. Maiden Gaikatsu Bunshin, Dark Release. Skeleton Bunshin Jutsu. First of all, The blonde was loathing the name Bunshin because this was the only academy jutsu he had yet to learn how to do it like it should. But this new one is definitely different from either the normal Bunshin or the cage Bunshin, he once heard his grandfather explain it to him. Nevertheless, he initiated the 5 seal sequence, before slamming both his hands on the ground, since the black chakra would have to be sent to the ground. Suddenly, though, in front of him, 4 holes opened up and 4 skulls appeared out of it, before looking at him. According to the information that the fox gave him, these clones were his exact replicate, albeit just his bone structure at least. They're more resilient to damage than neither the regular Bunshin nor even the elemental ones he could fight out there. Well, another jutsu for my arsenal, Naruto thought as he dispelled the technique and the bones just fall limp on the floor, before the ground enveloped them. Smiling, the blonde practiced his 2 jutsus until the sun was up, with a smile on his face. Let's see those ignorant fools try their luck on me once more.